Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the continuation of the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship Season 2, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today, we march on with the story that asks the question, who is the master of the Touring Car Racing Class Car? And with only 3 rounds to go, we are here in round 6 of 8 in the United States of America, at none other than the venerable tarmac of Watkins Glen International, for what is expected to be an absolute thriller of a round based around high speed, high intensity and slipstream orientated racing. And as our drivers in the background get ready to go racing over the course of tonight's 3 races, let's take you for our schedule. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time, UTC. The timings are as follows. In just under 19 minutes time, we'll be heading into our qualifying session. 30 minutes in duration, as is the norm, and in fact 20 minutes as the norm, we should say there, but at 8:30 this evening. And as our drivers make their way around their circuit in that 20 minutes, we'll see all the drivers taken to the tarmac at once. There'll be no segregation of classes, and therefore you can imagine that everybody will be vying to get into the slipstream as best as they humanly possibly can, for the simple reason slipstream will be king, and also track position may just be a determining factor in terms of how they perform in the races. Particularly race number 1, which will follow immediately after, that will be at approximately 10 to 9 this evening, while drivers will make their way around for 15 laps of racing, and indeed all 3 races 15 laps in duration. And as our drivers take on the tarmac in race number 1, they'll then make their way into race number 2 shortly after, with the grid expected to start forming up around what will be at 9 this evening. In sprint race number 2, we'll see a reorganisation of the grid, and we'll come to the specifics about that shortly. Another 15-lap race before we take another pause after the checker flag comes on out, before we get ready to go racing for the final time this evening at approximately 10:05, which will be for sprint race number 3, the 15-lap conclusion. This broadcast is of course being brought to you live by free media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are a YouTube user, you can go to youtube.com and search for Next Gen Racing and tune in via the official Next Gen Racing YouTube channel. Alternatively, if you are a Facebook user, you can go to facebook.com/groups/users /where's Next Gen Racing, we should say, the user there, and be able to tune in on Facebook. And then last but not least, you can always go to Twitch and search for twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in on Twitch. Now, who is TX141? Well, that is I, your host and commentator for this series. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141, or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action tonight as we get ready to go racing once more. And indeed, a week passes, the time absolutely flies on by, and as we get closer and closer to the terminus of the championship, you imagine that time is really now starting to speed up. But as we get ready to go, of course, let's take a look at our calendar so far and what still lies in wait as we look ahead. And as we can see now, heading into the 10th of January 2023, Watkins Glen International is our venue for today. And after today, we'll be making our way back across the European continent for the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben for the penultimate round on the 17th of January, a touring car racing circuit which will be very tight over the course of the racing laps, but also one that is entrenched in history of TCR racing class machinery. And then in the concluding round, we're making our way to the South American continent for none other than Sao Paulo, Brazil, for Interlagos on the 24th of January, and then we'll bring it all to a close. A circuit is no stranger to championship drama in a season finale, and you only need to look to Formula 1 or indeed TCR Brazil in order to see recent events of that calibre. But prior to all this, of course, prior to round number 6, last time out, we were in Japan, all the way across the Pacific Ocean for the Twin Ring Motegi circuit, and now on the 3rd of January, a circuit that's not common to international calendars, but more focused on Japanese domestic calendars, we got to see at the east course of the Twin Ring Motegi circuit just how close and tense the touring car racing could be around there, with plenty of battling action up and down the field, and also the breaking of the tradition, which was for Mikey Doble, our Pro Class Championship lead, as we come to the score shortly, whereby if he took the win in race number 1, he'd gone to make it a triplet of wins in a given round. We was able to make it 2 out of 3, but not bring the 3rd win home, and therefore it has broken the tradition. But still, he's still got plenty of points to play for. Prior to that, we had our break week, of course, over the Christmas break back in 2022. In round number 4, it was in Austria for the Red Bull Ring, and that on the 20th of December was a thriller to wrap up the first half of the season, where it's just as much about being bold on the brakes as it was slipstream and hanging the speed from corner to corner. In round number 3, it was in Belgium at Circuit Zolder Alternate, where the fast last chicane, indeed the 3 major chicanes of the Belgian circuit, really throwing our drivers for a tricky one in regards to the fact they had to balance the transition of the car in terms of its weight just as much as balance the battling with other drivers. And that was on the 13th of December. And back on the 6th of December in round number 2, we were in Spain for the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya National, and there at the short layout of the Spanish circuit, we saw sparks fly and plenty of door rubbing between drivers, whereby those battles from corner to corner, lap on lap, and it really was one where there's plenty of body parts of the cars flying off, but at the same time still plenty of close battling, and that's what we love to see at touring car racing. And all the way back in the season opener, of course, and it feels like a lifetime since the 29th of November in 2022. We kicked off at Donington Park Grand Prix circuit in the United Kingdom in a round that really set the tempo and the pace and carried on from the major intensity of the racing from season 1. But as we continue the story of season 2, let's go on to our Drivers' Championship standings. And these are the overall standings, of course, with our pros and pro-ams all amalgamated together. And we can see at the very top there, by a sizable margin, excess of 100 points, Mikey Doble leads the way on 337 points to Adam Delmont's 213. Adam Delmont, of course, jumping into P2 with the absence of Will Redford, and Delmont having a brilliant set of results in Japan last time out. But it seems though the big question is who can find a way to usurp Mikey Doble at this late stage in the championship. We say it's a late stage, albeit we've got 3 rounds to go, but an advantage now extending to over 100 points. Doble really is in the driving seat and is now starting to take control of his own championship destiny. Will Redford, in his absence, drops to P3 last time, of course, and now on 210 points. They'll be looking to jump back into P2 today, as he is in attendance day, we can confirm. And then Jamie Dory then leads the rest of the field on 144 points in P4, ahead of Chris Daines in P5 on 129 points. And we do need to announce, based on instant reports in round number 5 last time out, ladies and gentlemen, due to the number of instant points accrued in the previous round, Chris Daines has been removed from the championship for the remainder of the season. And indeed, we do have some other drivers who are in the naughty box with regards to instants last time out, and we'll come to them shortly. But just to confirm, they unfortunately will not be seeing Chris Daines from Verano Motorsport take to the tarmac for the remainder of NXTCC Season 2. Gavin Gardner there, his teammate, in P6 and 115 points, only 2 clear of Daniel Holmer in P7, with Andrew Pike not far behind, nor Martin Sholey or Callum Reed-Garton completing the overall top 10. And it is Sam Smith, who is the best of the rest in P11, ahead of Kieran Sharp and Matthew Addy there, only behind Sharp based on result countback. The Pram driver leading the way for the Prams on 72 points. 3 clear of Wayne Douglas and Michael Leese there in P15, fighting on to hold on to the top 15 over on 63 points. And we should point out that Michael Leese today will have a pit lane start in race number 1, and it will be for accumulating 12 instant points, a full roster of instant points, and not permitted to qualify as a result. Nick Clemens P16 ahead of Adam McNally, with Reese Watt, Johnny Peroni and Joseph Doble completing the top 20. And you can see that our 3 Prime drivers, the major 3 protagonists in the Prime Championship, are trying to take home that championship crown, and we'll come on to their specific standings in short order. Outside the top 20, into P21 through to P40, Lee Horn there on 35 points, 1 clear of John Higgins Jr., with Alan McCain in P23 ahead of Ian Manners and Isaac Doble. And then we have Paul Scott, Davide Favo, Sebastian Bruberg, Nigel Stock and Bram Clays completing the top 30, with John Higgins Sr. P31 ahead of Luke Jones, Jonathan Collins, Bernardo Colbe, and Mark Sykes, Jason Morris and Matt Emmons completing our run of drivers with points in the overall standings. And then without points from P38 all the way through to the conclusion of the overall standings, we do have there Daniel Weston, Elwyn Sykes, Josh Brown, and then Liam Silkstone, Philip Bruberg, Rob McGregor, Sean Scooter, Stefan Vessels, Thomas Delaney and Trev Anderson. But now coming on to the class-specific Drivers' Championship standings, we can see here, firstly with the pros, Mikey Doble leads by a margin that now extends to 126 points over his closest rival of Adam Delmont, and Delmont only 1 point ahead of Will Redford. And really, as we said earlier, it is now Doble's destiny to win this championship, it would seem, albeit we could still have some late drama in this championship. Let's not rule it out. And can Adam Delmont and Will Redford try to avoid fighting one another too much and steer clear of one another to work towards a common goal of reeling Doble back on in? Or will they fight and start to put themselves entrenched in that battle for P2, with Daniel Holman not too far behind in P4, they're on 174 points, and really now starting to build his place within the top 5 after what was a great run last time out. Chris Daines there in P5 on 160 points, equal to Jamie Dory, just ahead based on result countback, with Jamie Dory there under pressure from Gavin Gardner, his old rival from Season 1, with Gavin Gardner having a great result, of course, in the conclusion of the race in Japan last time out with the win in race number 3, moves up to P7 ahead of Andrew Pye, with Sam Smith and Martin Shirley completing the top 10, and it is Michael Leese best the rest in P11 101 points, with a margin there of 16 points over Nick Clibbins, and it's Callum Reed-Garton, Wayne Douglas and Kieran Sharp completing the top 15, with Adam McNally, Gianni Peroni and John Higgins Jr. finish off the Pro Drivers' Championship standings. We then come on to the Prams meanwhile, and here the complexion is a bit similar, albeit the gaps are slightly smaller. Matthew Addy leads the way on 240 points and really being Mr. Consistent, and also the third driver to add their name to the Hall of Fame in Season 2 in the Prams in terms of bringing home a triplet of wins in a given round. Of course, the third driver to do it, and now leading by 39 points, Joseph Doble is his next counterpart, who sits there in P2. Now, some of you may be saying at this point, well, that's a bit of a shock, that's a bit of a surprise, because it's always been Reese Watt and Matthew Addy who've been at the top of the standings. Well, of course, last time out in Japan, Reese Watt could have not had a more difficult day of racing, losing major points and major results, and Joseph Doble being able to usurp him into that P2 position with only 5 points between the pair. What this means is, much like the Pro Championship, we have a P2 battle which is starting to arise, and can both Joseph Doble and Reese Watt put aside their differences to be able to find a way to bring Matthew Addy to bear? If they can't, he may just creep away today, and with Alan McCain not too far, for a further 12 points off in P4, and Ian Manners a further 14 points off, and Lee Horn only a further 7 points off, McCain, Manners and Horn really could throw a spanner in the works for Joseph Doble and Reese Watt, there's no doubt about it. Isaac Doble in P7 meanwhile, 113 points, really leading the rest of the pursuing pack, 2 points clear of Mark Sykes, with Luke Jones and Jason Morris completing the top 10, and it's Philip Bruberg in P11 ahead of Jonathan Collins by a margin of 10 points, with Paul Scott there building his way up into P13, and Nigel Stock not too far behind in P14, with Matt Emmons in P15, 2 points clear of John Higgins Sr. It's Trevor Anderson then in P17 on 42 points, with 9 points clear of Davide Favo, with Bernardo Colbe and Elwin Sykes completing the top 20, and outside the top 20 but not to be forgotten about are Sebastian Bruberg, Daniel Weston, Liam Silkstone, Stefan Vessels, Sean Scooter, Bram Clays, Thomas Delaney, Josh Brown and Rob McGregor. But now coming on to the Teams Championship, and we can see here that leading the way still by a margin that has been slightly reduced as of last round by a margin of 270 points, it's NDA Honda Racing. With Excite Racing building ground and moving into P2 ahead of Rana Motorsport, but given how close it is between the two teams, only 15 points between them, it really is becoming the hunt for P2 in the championship, with NDA Honda Racing still technically mathematically reachable, but that gap is far and short in between in terms of how soon they've got before it closes. We then have the Sim Racing Collective in P4, and the pair of Andrew Pike and Kieran Sharp continue to impress on 178 points, and the best part of 16 points clear of NXTGEN Racing Yellow, with iRacing Esports there in P6, also looking to get into the fray, only 6 points off of the top 5. We then have a sizable gap to P17 Bright Esports. They continue to fend off Simtech Racing, with Garton McCollboy Racing in P9, and JW Motorsport completing the top 10. Outside the top 10, best of the rest there, HSR on 48 points, with 52 Zillow Crest Racing in P12, and it's NXTGEN Racing Blue and CSA Racing who complete the standings, and of course it was Davide Favo's P3 last time out in the Pro-Am class in race number 3 of the day in Japan, which have seen them pick up their first Teams Championship points. Congratulations to him. Now going on to the Manufacturers Championship, we can see here that Honda continues to be the most successful manufacturer over the course of the season. With a margin extending of over 600 points to be 609 to be precise, it is going to be the Honda Civic Type Rs that take 75 kilograms of success ballast into this round. The Hyundai Elantras, meanwhile, they'll be taking 50 kilograms for a total points of 430, with the fellow Veloster car of the manufacturer taking 25 kilograms of success ballast, not being too far behind. And we have continued to see an interchange between the Elantra and the Veloster, and it'll be the Audi RS3 that continues to run without any success ballast, much like at the start of the season. 118 points there, but 0 kilograms. Given the fact the RS3 has proven not to be the strongest car, but perhaps that will turn today, and we'll come to why specifically shortly. Now coming on to our circuit for today, of course it is Watkins Glen International, but we'll be running the Cup course that's normally featured in the official NASCAR racing series in the United States of America. Located in what is the town of Dix, just shy of the village of Watkins Glen in New York in the United States of America, this circuit consists of 7 corners, as you can see from the circuit map provided us by simracingwiki.com. Thank you to them as always for their brilliant circuit maps. This is a circuit that is all about speed and thrill and spectacle in the run through corner to corner, because with the corners here, which are not shown through a 2-dimensional diagram, it is going to be a significant amount of road camber on each and every corner, and some corners that are not heavily cambered inwards, they'll be off cambered away from the apex, and that means it's all about judging about how much speed you can take into the corner and also how soon you can get back on the throttle. Plus, with the fact you've got quite wide runoff areas as well, it presents plenty of opportunities for overtaking, and drivers can afford to be bold here, unless of course we consider the fact that you do have the straightaways, as they say in the United States, or the straights as we say in the UK, and there's going to be plenty of slipstreaming opportunities. It'll be the run to turn number 1 firstly, where we'll see the contention points under braking into the right-hander, and as our drivers make their way out of turn number 1, they'll charge their way through the kinks of 2, 3 and 4, and given the fact that our TCR cars do not have much downforce, we will see on cold tyres, and in the early stages of the race, and our drivers will have to slightly lift through these corners, but later on when the fuel comes out of the car and the tyres are up to temperature, they'll be going flat out through the S's in the run to the bus stop chicane. Not officially numbered as a corner, our drivers will make their way into the bus stop before coming into the outer loop corner of turn number 5, rolling their way downhill effectively, and then they'll be heading onto the back straight where the Cup course stays clear of the boot as they make their way into the left-right sequence to turn 6 and 7, the medium speed sweepers, to do it all again over what is 15 laps in each and every race. As for our rules for today, they haven't changed. Let's just give you a reminder of them. This firstly is a fixed setup series, so our drivers are bringing a predetermined setup to each round, as been set by the organisers. In terms of driver classes, they have been finalised, of course, as of round number 3. We're not expecting any more driver class changes. In the sprint races, the race number 1 grid will be set based on results of qualifying. The race 2 grid shall be set based on the results of race number 1, and the race 3 grid shall be set based on a reverse grid on the results of race number 2, with the reversal position being drawn live from between 6th place and 12th place. And of course, remember, we cannot take 9th place today out of the lottery bowl as we cut to the commentary booth at that point in time, because P9 was selected in Japan via the lottery draw. Each driver shall have 2 fast repairs available in each race, and each race shall conclude after either the allotted lap amount of 15 laps or after 30 minutes if we do see safety cars deployed. Now, on top of that, talking about safety cars, just to remind you, race stewarding-wise, an independent race director shall be stewarding the races for track limit infringements and also the deployment of the safety car. There will be penalties for track limit infringements as distributed as follows. The first through to third warnings, there's no penalty, just a warning. The fourth warning is a 5-second post-race time penalty. The fifth one that goes up to 10 seconds. And the sixth warning will be a drive-through penalty that must be served within 3 laps of being given notice. Racing incidents, meanwhile, shall be reviewed post-round. The steward will not be conducting any reviews of incidents midway through the race. But that's enough rules, regulations, and everything in between. I know what you're all here for. You're here for the racing. I am too. And as we get ready to go, then we look back to circuit side and we look to none other than our overall and our Pro Championship leader here of Mikey Doble as he makes his way down around through the bus stop chicane. Now, of course, Doble, the number 1 driver at this point in time, really flying high with regards to his championship progression and also in the standings as a whole. And as he makes his way there down through turn number 5, he is going to be the man to beat here. There's no doubt about it. Everybody would love to take the scalp of Doble because, of course, he set such a high standard for NDA Honda Racing and indeed the field as a whole. But on top of that as well, there could be a little bit of a conundrum for him and every Honda Civic Type R driver to work around. And that is, of course, this is the fastest circuit on the calendar in terms of average lap speed. You can compare this in a way to the BTCC equivalent, which would be at Thruxton circuit in the United Kingdom, whereby here we'll be seeing our drivers have high speeds over all the corners, indeed on the straights. And what's the one weakness of the Honda that we talked about since the very outset of Season 2? It is its top end speed. This car accelerates very well through the lower gears, through 2nd through to 4th, but once it gets into 5th and 6th, it really starts to struggle and becomes ever more dependent on its cornering speed and also its ability to be in the toe of cleared away from the driver behind before it gets onto the straight where the driver behind begins to catch up. Now, conversely, we are expecting all of our other cars to be benefactors of this, and with the 75 kilograms of success ballast as well in the Hondas, that is definitely going to impede their progress down the straights. Meanwhile, we look to the Hyundai Veloster, as piloted by Wayne Douglas here, currently the fastest man in this final practice session with 2.5 minutes to go. And the Next Gen Racing yellow driver here is showing that the Veloster is going to be quite a strong car. It is that jack of all trades, master of none, and with only 25 kilograms of success ballast, that may cause it to be a little bit faster on the straights compared to what we would normally expect. Given this car is not the top end master, but it does have great punch in terms of its gearing all the way up into 5th gear, and also it's reasonable on the corners and on the brakes, something which the Honda, of course, excels at. But what about other cars? What about the Audi RS3, I hear you ask? Well, that's the car which right now everybody is raising an eyebrow at, given the fact the Audi RS3 is known for one thing, and that is its ability not just to be stable over curves, but to fly fast down the straights, particularly when it gets into 5th and 6th gear. And as Gavin Gardner's shown here in the Verano Motorsport machine, this car is going to be the one to beat on the straights. And you can imagine that if Gavin can find a way to get himself high up there in the order, then in terms of qualifying, he could just be pulling away from everyone after the first couple of laps in each and every race. But will he be able to do it? That will be the challenge. And he's not going to be alone there, because the Audi RS3 will be fast, but also let's keep in mind that the Hyundai Elantras will also have quite a lot of speed down the straightaways as well. Not quite up there with the Audi RS3, but they will be coming very close indeed. As we see Andrew Pike there parked up in the pit lane, one of our Elantra drivers in the Sim Racing Collective 99 machine. But with just over 1 minute left to go, we do look to the chat and we say hello to Katie Eames there in the Facebook chat. And good evening to you, Katie. And well, I'm not doing too bad, Katie, I must admit. Doing quite well, thank you, and I hope you're doing well as well. And to all you guys tuning in at home, all you guys and girls, I hope you've all had a great week so far. And if you haven't, hopefully a little bit of touring car racing action can bring a smile to your faces here. Indeed, it's what we absolutely love on iRacing, whether it be in the simulated world or the real world. Touring car racing continues to excel day to day. And well, it's going to be an absolutely excellent round, I can promise you that right now, as our drivers get ready to go once again. Now, as they make their way on around here, we also have to introduce a newcomer for this evening, and that is this man here, Benjamin McCluskey, or Benji McCluskey as he's also known, and we'll get to see him take on the circuit in the privateer Hyundai Elantra there, and he will be categorised as being part of the Prime class. He is technically a guest for this series in the fact that he's only competing for this round as we're to understand it, but he may also be making guest appearances in the final 2 rounds if he is available. But there he is, running in a special tribute livery, of course, to Ken Block, who recently deceased unexpectedly. Very sad to hear about the passing of Ken Block, but still a major contributor to the world of hooliganism in the world of motorsport and motorsport as a whole. Really dreaming to dare to believe, and well, we do honour him, and well, a number of drivers running special tributes, including of course Jamie Dory as well. But as we look to hear Joseph Doble making his way down towards turn number 1, the checker flag comes out in the final practice session. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, to get ready to go for qualifying. Who's going to be our fastest driver in the field to take pole position in both the classes? Let's find out. So as the field gets ready to go then, and the timer ticks away, what can we expect here in qualifying beyond what we talked about with regards to the cars and how they're expected to perform? Well, we are expecting slipstream to be a pivotal factor in each and every qualifying lap here, for the given reason that we are not running the boot circuit. Now, if we were running the full boot circuit, how would that change the complexion? Well, the boot layout would see our drivers add in additional corners. We would see our drivers defect away from the back straight and make the way into the boot after coming out to turn number 5, and that would condense the number of straights between corners. We'd still have plenty of straights, but the length of them in particular would be reduced, and therefore cars which are perhaps a little bit more dependent on slipstream, such as the Honda Civic Type R, would not be as exposed to that dependency. Conversely, of course, if you're in a very fast car, such as the Audi RS3, if there's less straights to play with it in general, but they're long straights in that regard, then you do have that ability to really optimise that top end, but you will want some slipstream in order to polish off the lap. Meanwhile, if you've got more and more straights, but they're shorter in nature, then you lose out that advantage that you do get in the car, and therefore for Gavin Gardner right now, indeed our other Audi RS3 drivers, such as what is Davide Favo, who's making his way out of the pit lane right now, and really the hero of CSA racing team last time out in Japan, as we mentioned earlier. Well, for the Audi drivers here, it is going to be a case they may want to find themselves a bit of clear space on track and try to stay clear of anybody jumping onto their back for their toe. But let's not forget about also the Hyundai Elantras, which will really be trying to capitalise on that toe effect. And we can see here Andrew White making his way on around. We can see Elantra, a very fast one-lap car, doesn't quite have the top-end performance of the RS3 in 6th gear, but from 2nd through to 5th, it's an absolute flyer. And also it does have a little bit more twitchiness to that rear end compared to the RS3. The RS3 built around stability, the Elantra by comparison built around having a brake bias that's really pushed towards the rear brakes and then being able to shift that rear end rapidly through the corners, and therefore it is going to be an offset. The stability is quite key here, particularly at the bus stop chicane, but as the majority of our drivers now start making their way onto their first flying laps, we're not going to quite ride on board just yet for the simple reason I want to get the tyres up to temperature. And with regards to temperatures here today, those ambient temperatures in particular, we are running our race sessions instead of around morning and midday into afternoon, evening. Instead we're starting off in the afternoon, going into the latter portion of the afternoon and then going deep into the evening, and that is because here in the United States at the moment the track temperatures are very high in general, and we've decided to go a little bit later in the day in order to reduce those track temperatures slightly and keep our drivers safe from that, because once you start getting a very high track surface temperature, these cars really start to lose grip and they become very skittish under braking or indeed under high speed cornering. But as we do see here, Pike making his way down through turn at number 5 and heading up towards turn number 6 already, getting towards the end of his opening flying lap. You'll see many a driver run as deep as possible coming out of turn number 5, using the runoff area there, and drivers are permitted to do so. It is not counted as an invalidated lap there based on the iRacing track limits. However, as part of post-race stewarding, drivers are permitted to report if they feel another driver has gained an advantage by running very wide, using the NASCAR line technically coming out of turn number 5, and if they do so, the stewards will take a look at it and they may just judge that an advantage has been gained and apply a post-race time penalty. So therefore there's a lot of whip to play with in the circuit, and we're going to be seeing plenty of drivers trying to use it, but can they use it tactically, not to gain too much of an advantage? That'll be the big question that'll be pondered on the minds of many. But as we look to Sam Smith here making his way right now out of turn turn at number 1 and up the hill towards turn at number 2, 3 and 4 into the S's. Here he goes. You can see they're trying to get a bit of a distant toe off the Sim Racing collective car just in front, and as he comes roaring on through here, the pro driver right now yet to get time on the board, but of course with the amount of time available in this qualifying session, leaving it late is not necessarily a bad thing. The only downside of leaving it late is of course you can't adjust the fuel that's in the car because it is a fixed setup, and therefore you may want to try and burn some of the fuel out of the car given the propensity of the straights here at Watkins Glen. But as he makes his way on down through the right-hander turn at number 5, Why do we talk about Watkins Glen being a venerable racing surface? Why is it considered to be one of the ultimate historical circuits in the United States? Well, it is considered to be the circuit which saw the birthplace of post-war road racing in the United States, not the whole of the North American continent. When we say post-war, after the Second World War, with the circuit being formally opened in 1956, in its history it has seen practically every class of road racing on an international level come to its surface, with Formula One racing here for the United States Grand Prix from 1961 through to 1980, the GT World Challenge America racing here in the 2000s, particularly recently from 2019 to 2022, and also it is a regular host of series such as NASCAR and also the IMSA SportsCar Championship year in, year out. This circuit which really does bring the spectacle in terms of cars and fans every year, and also it's a venue which hosts a number of live concerts on its surface as well, depending on which bands are available at the given time. But less about the music and let's just sing into the tune of exhaust fumes and turbos right now as our drivers make their way on around, and we do look to Mark Sykes meanwhile as he makes his way for the bus stop chicane at the moment and bring his way on to the brakes into turn number 5. Mark Sykes, well as drivers, of course, who has really shown that growing pace over the course of the season. Had a bit of a slow start compared to his peers in the Pro-Am class, but is now starting to continually contest, being qualifying up there within the top 10, if not towards the top 5 or just outside of it, and trying to knock onto the door of the top 5 as he comes into turn at number 6, making his way through the left into right of 6 and 7. We will very shortly be jumping on board with a Honda Civic Type R drive to give you an onboard lap from his perspective as he comes through the final corner here and rolls his way on out. And now we jump on board, we bring the dashboard up in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, and away he goes on to another flying lap. So crossing the timeline and building his way up towards 6th gear here, but not in time if he gets on the brakes at the 300-yard board and coming down to 3rd gear, sliding the car slightly initially under braking as he makes his way out of 1 and up towards the exit of 2, 3 and 4. Flat out now through these corners, he comes through the depression and into the rise of 2 and then into left-hander 3 here, just keep it nice and tight to the apex. Brings it up into 4 as he comes through the right-hander, completely flat out all the way as he finally upshifts into 6th gear, wasting no space with regards to the RPM band of 5th gear as he gets ready for the bus stop chicane, looks to his left, looks to the 300 board, snaps down the gearbox, points it into the corner, just misses the wall by inches there as he comes on through in 4th gear and now drops it back down to what will be 3rd gear as he travels into the apex. Or does he stay in 4th? In fact, he opts to stay in 4th so that way he can get on the power sooner with less power being put through the front wheels and therefore less potential understeer as he comes through turn number 5 and up to 5th he goes, and now down towards turn number 6, another long straight as he gets ready to go into the braking zone, looks to his left hand side for his brake board to the right hand side, in fact braking at about 180 yards, and as he comes into 4th gear, bringing it on through and into the right hander, turn at number 7, down from 4th. Will he drop to 3rd? No, he stays in 4th. He opts to stay there and not push his luck as he comes out the corner, but it's a smooth lap from Mark Sykes, and as he comes to the timeline he's going to improve. Was P18 overall as he comes across the thoroughfare, and well, does he improve in the end? I do not think so, and I believe the reason he did not improve in fact is he ran a little bit too wide, making his way out of turn at number 1. I think our drivers are required to stay within the track limits and keep 2 wheels at least on the red and orange yellow curbing at turn number 1 on the exit, so they can run wide coming out of turn at number 5 unless I'm mistaken. But meanwhile still plenty of drivers improving. Speaking of that, Mikey Doble right now jumping into provisional pole with a 17.713, 6.5 hundredths faster than Gavin Gardner. And of course here, if Mikey Doble can get the Honda Civic Type R on pole, well, that goes to tell you that he is absolutely going for it right now. And well, we will expect him to be up there, but he is battling against the current. He is battling upstream, given the deficit the Honda Civic Type R had. But then again, it just shows it's just as much the choice of car as it is the driver, and this time the driver is really showing through and shine high with regards to his performance. He makes his way through the bus stop chicane. Got a bit of traffic ahead though in the form of the iRacing eSports pair ahead of him, and that is going to cost him some time. As meanwhile we look to JW Motorsports' Luke Jones as he makes his way into turn at number 6. He does have a follower behind him, while the Bright eSport machines, I believe that's the Bright eSport Elantra of what is Philip Bruberg following him on through, and as they make the way through, in fact that is Daniel Holmer, and as they come through the right hander of turn at number 7, will come in all the way down. In fact, that is Philip Bruberg. I'll correct myself again. It is Bruberg himself. And as they make their way across the timeline here, well, I think Luke Jones may have to go again. Only improved in the final sector and comes into the braking zone and currently P17. But to give you an idea of the proximity of those lap times, we can see there from P1 through to P19 driver Benjamin McCluskey, our guest for today in the Pro-Am class. It is a gap of what is 1.1 seconds. It's just been raised, that gap, as Mikey Doble goes even faster at the top of the stands there with 17.471. Now 3 tenths clear the rest of the field, but Wayne Douglas immediately responds. And well, given the closeness of the field, with only been 1 second between what is P17 and our pole sitter right now, and then a couple other drivers not too far for that 1 second window, it's all to play for. And one driver who gets a good lap with the toe could end up jumping a long way up the field. Now, we talk about Mikey Doble being our overall pole sitter and, of course, our pro pole sitter, but what about our Pro-Am class drivers here? Well, Reese Watts, of course, off to a flyer here, and he needs it right now in terms of his championship aspirations if he wants to be right back up there battling with Matthew Addy, albeit the gap between the two of them is not colossal, but still, at this point in the game, you need to make sure those gaps do not expand beyond more than, say, 20 points going into a round, for the simple reason 20-point gap is quite easily overcomable over the course of 3 races in the round. But 40 or so, that becomes a bigger pickle altogether. But as Reese Watt makes his way into turn number 1, no pickles for him in terms of getting it wrong at the corner. Instead, heading it up towards the S's now, and currently the fastest man in the Pro-Am class by a margin of 400ths over Matthew Addy, and really is the Honda Civic here, the battling up with the Veloster for that pole position. Unless we do see anybody suddenly throw a lap out of the left field, and it does look as though Ian Manners, as he crosses the line, he does not improve this time around, setting a 19.181, which is well off the pace that he's previously set for himself, which is an 18.20. But as he comes out of turn number 1 and up towards turn number 2, still have half the qualifying session to go, he's got plenty of time to spend and look to invest in terms of finding that ultimate lap. As meanwhile, making the way out of the pits is the Audi RS3, in fact on an out lap effectively, so he's already made his way out of the pits and halfway around to go on to another flying lap. It's Cameron Gardner here, who's currently P5, who moves out the way there for the iRacing eSports pair coming on through and down the round as they roll their way on towards turn number 6, and that is the pair of Alan McCain, and I believe Nick Clibben's just behind him as McCain right now, the Pro-Am driver, currently P5 in the Pro-Am class, P16 overall in this qualifying session, enjoying the run of the field. And of course McCain, one of those late risers in what is the Pro-Am Championship, and that's not through lack of trying. We have seen over the course of the entire season just how much pace McCain has, but where he's been held back, and indeed the whole of iRacing Esports have really been held back, and Nick Clibbens has been the embodiment of that, is the struggles with regards to being able to have a race that has not been filled with instant. And Nick Clibbens, of course, the opening 3 rounds, every time he was absolutely on the pace. It all went horribly wrong with regards to in the races, being even given a knockabout on circuit, alternatively just having difficulties as he rolls his way on up the hill. But as he comes charging on through, we do have an opportunity to talk to one driver who unfortunately is not permitted to take to the circuits at the moment, and that is none other than Michael Lees, who we'll be hearing from very shortly. In fact, we might be able to hear from Michael Lees now as we do get the chance to speak to him. And as we hear from Michael Lees now, Michael, of course, you do have a qualifying ban today, meaning that you're not able to take your time out there on the circuit and try to get yourself on up the field. But whilst you're waiting, surely you've got to be scheming how you can pick your way through the field over the course of the first race.
Yeah, it's true. I've been a naughty boy and I've been slapped on the wrist. You know, it's a fair enough penalty, I guess. You know, I'm trying super hard, obviously being moved up into the pros, maybe a bit harder than what I should be doing. And I'm taking risks maybe that I shouldn't be doing. I've also, you know, I've had a few races where me and another gentleman that isn't taking part today have had a few comings together. It's a shame that that's had to come to that as well. But yeah, I mean, starting from the pit lane, obviously not ideal on a circuit where the cars are going to be so close together with draft. However, you know, I've got some pace here, and yeah, if I can keep it clean and I can get past people and people don't fight too hard, I think I can make my way up towards the front somewhere, at least by the end of the second race, if not the first one. It's just, yeah, got to keep it out of the wall and got to keep it out of other cars, really.
Indeed, and adding to that as well, are you expecting potentially a safety car here today? We know the run through turns 2, 3 and 4 on cold tyres on that opening lap, and the driver potentially going too wide could potentially be a recipe for a few incidents.
Am I expecting one? I'm counting on it.
Oh, indeed. Well, with that in mind, of course, your teammates also flying out there at the moment. Adam Delmont putting in an absolute flyer of a set of performances in Japan. How are you and the team as a whole feeling for today?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a shame that we're still missing two of our drivers. They've not come again, Adam and Liam, and hopefully we'll get them back at some point so we can be a 4-strong team again. It's just with me and Adam sort of trying to keep us up in second place in the teams championship at the moment. But yeah, I mean, Del's flying. He's got some pace. Where is he at the minute? 9th. So yeah, I mean, he can race with the front boys as long as he can get up there and get ahead of them. You know, the people who's behind at the moment. Hopefully he can qualify a little bit better in the next 5 minutes. From a team's point of view, you know, I'm still really surprised that we're second, but we're going to try and hang on to it for dear life with our, you know, tips of our fingers, like, and try and drag it through to the last round. But yeah, I mean, I've turned a corner. I've changed some equipment in my setup. I'm no longer in the VR headset. I'm on triple monitors now, and I'm finding that a little bit better. So a bit more consistency. So yeah, I'm hoping that, you know, end of this season I'll start showing a bit more form, and yeah, into next season I'll hopefully be up there and actually fighting for some decent results.
Well, you can definitely say, even if you're looking more towards the end of the season and next season, pushing for those results, it's been great to see how you've evolved over the course of the season with your performances initially in the Pro-Am class and then rising up into the Pro class and really having to take the fight. And given that in mind, of course, Watkins Glen today, and then we've got Oschersleben, and also what is in the 2 weeks time, the finale into Lagos. Are you looking forward to these final 3 rounds? Are there any that really stand out?
So I quite like this. Like I say, I've got a bit of pace, but it is a draft track, so I'm expecting it to be quite difficult to make my way all the way through the field. Hopefully, like you say, a couple of safety cars, and there you go, I'll be up there somewhere. And maybe even in the final race, you know, if I can get on that reverse grid and get right up towards the front, I can, yeah, I can stretch away with the front guys. Oschersleben, don't really know that one again. It's not a track that I've ever driven, so that's another one what I'm going to have to learn. You know, this is the reason mainly why I was thinking like Pro-Am was the place for me, because there's a lot of circuits that I've never driven before. But you know, you take the rough with the smooth, and if that's the consensus, and that's what it is. So yeah, learn Oschersleben from scratch. But I am definitely looking forward to Brazil. I love that track. It's got great flow. I love it.
That's great here, Michael. Well, with that, we'll leave you to it. Let you get ready for going racing in 4 minutes' time. It's great to hear from you, and we'll hopefully speak to you again later today.
Yeah, watch this space. I'll be on the podium on one of the 3.
Loving the confidence. All the best. So hearing there from our iRacing driver, who's having to start from the pit lane and is not permitted to take part in qualifying, and that is Michael Lease, of course. And whilst we were speaking to Michael, and we do love his confidence, the iRacing driver, we did see a brief moment for what was our driver of Jonathan Collins getting it very, very wrong and having a quite dangerous off track in the end at the bus stop chicane, and we're having to reset to the pit lane. And well, as our driver making the way on around right now, and that interview having concluded, what has there been to report in the meantime? Well, we did have Mikey Doble make his way back out on the circuit and come into the pits for about 2 or 3 minutes and opting to then go back out once again with an advantage right now, that provisional pole overall and pro time of 1/10. It is closing at the very top end of the field, but Sam Smith, meanwhile, moving up into P6 quite recently. He's pushing further and further up the field, and we've got a number of drivers who are trying to creep laps in. And speaking of iRacing Esports, here's Alan McCain, who is currently now your Pro-Am pole sitter by a margin of what is only 1,000th over Matthew Addy, and it is the rise of the iRacing Esports Elantra as he comes on through. And well, it's been a while since we rode on board with an Elantra driver. Let's ride on board here as he heads on down for a flying lap. Making his way down towards turn number 1, and as he heads on down here, the difference we are going to see with regards to the Elantra is the speed it picks up on the exit of each corner as he makes his way out in 3rd gear from turn number 1, or 90 right as it's nicknamed, and as he makes his way flat out now through turns 2, 3 and 4. Maximum possible grip on the circuit with the amount of rubber that's been laid down, the track temperature coming up as well. Full confidence here, already up into 5th gear as he gets ready now to come through the right-hander of 4 and gets ready to hit 6th gear, almost at the top of the red band. He'll wait as late as possible, he'll milk the gear, and as he heads up into 6th now, making his way towards the bus stop chicane, looking to his left-hand side and braking at 200 ball, going as late as he does. You can see him snapping it into the corner under braking as he comes on through the bus stop into turn number 5, brings the car in gradually to the apex, 4th gear, gets the power back on very gently at first, and feeds the car, feeds the power in, lets the car run out there. That's the off-track space they are permitted to take, and as he makes his way up towards turn number 6, now looking to his right-hand side for his brake marker, or left-hand side depending on his preference, as he sees the board there, braking at 200-yard board, coming on through the left-hand in 4th gear, now getting ready for the final corner of the circuit as he comes on through turn number 7. Will he push it all the way to the worn corner exit? Goes a little bit deep though under braking, interestingly. I think that has cost him a bit of time as he heads towards the timing line, but still a smooth, sweet lap there from McCain as he comes across the line this time. He does not improve at all, and in fact sitting a margin of what was 5/10 off his previous best. I think McCain going for it, but just not finding the time that time around, but he's still got plenty of time to go in terms of one more lap here, and whilst it doesn't sound like much, he still has one to deliver, and he still does have that advantage of being the pole sitter in the prime class. As it currently stands, it's for Addy to find a 1,000-pound circuit as he heads all the way out towards the bus stop here. One more time, speaking of Matthew Addy, well, here is Addy giving a bit of a slipstream there to the number 36 car, Lee Horn, as Horn tucked in very tight. I think it's a little bit of a squeaky bum moment for Addy because he doesn't know where exactly to go as he puts the car in behind the iRacing sports car that's just dragging along there as they all try and come off race in line. Everyone trying to pick their way on through as they make it through. Leon loses the rear into the bus stop. We see them drifting the way on through. I think that is also there Joseph Doble getting it wrong. Isaac Doble just a bit further up the road. So for a number of drivers there, it's gone wrong at the bus stop. Daniel Holmes just gone to the final lap of this session effectively as he makes his way on around, but who is heading towards the very end of their final lap as we see Paul Scott making his way out of 6 into 7. And as he comes through the right hand, I think Paul Scott backing off. He's decided he's not going to improve. Who else can improve? That'll be the big question. Luke Jones also comes on in here, so it's not enough for Luke Jones. Meanwhile, we've also got coming around, well, Matthew Addy will not be improving, given the fact that we saw he was given the toe to Lee Horn and had to back it off, and that will mean that Matthew Addy will not be on pole in his class. He'll be P2 in class. What about Elwin Sykes here? Does he try and improve one more time? No, he makes his way into the pits. What about Daniel Holmer? Well, Daniel Holmer right now, the only driver out there on a technically valid lap, but he's not improving in subsectors 1 or 2. And as he makes his way on through, when it's turn number 6, it goes a little bit deeper the apex, comes towards 7. I think he may just back this off, given the fact he's not gone overly to the left-hand side from the driver's perspective. And indeed, he decides enough's enough. And that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, in a rather anticlimactic end to qualifying. But we can see on that tower on the left-hand side, it is Mikey Doble who's on pole on the Honda Civic Type R by 2 tenths over Wayne Douglas overall in the Pro class. And it's Alan McCain in the Pro class who takes pole position by a single 1,000th over Matthew Addy. The margin could not be finer between the two primes who will line up on row number 4 together, and I think we could see a bit of drama in the run to turn number 1. Can McCain hold off Addy? That will be the big question, as we see there in the Facebook chat. Katie Eames fully backing the Excite boys tonight. Well, speaking of backing drivers here, do let us know who you're backing, ladies and gentlemen, in any of the broadcast chats, whether it's on Twitch, Facebook or YouTube. But right now our attention turns to the formation of the grid as our drivers head on out for preparation for race number 1. So they will line up as follows on the grid. Mikey Doble takes pole position for the first race of today of round 6 of season 2 of the NXTCC at Watkins Glen International, joined by Next Gen Racing Yellow's Wayne Douglas on the front row, but the NDA Honda Racing driver once again proving untouchable, it would seem, in qualifying. Gavin Gunn and Daniel Holmer line up on row at number 2, with Martin Shirley and Sam Smith on row at number 3. The Simtech Racing driver they have one of his strongest qualifying sessions of the season, and behind him in line on grid, it will be P7 Alan McCain, who takes prime pole position for iRacing Esports, ahead of Matthew Addy from Next Gen Racing Yellow. Andrew Pye and Adam Delmont complete the top 10 via the 5th row, and it is Paul Scott and Nick Clibbins on row number 6. We then have behind them on row at number 7, Jamie Dury and Reese Watt, followed up by Joseph Doble and Will Redford on row at number 8. And then on row number 9, it's Ian Manners and Lee Horn, with Isaac Doble and Benjamin McCluskey completing the top 10 rows, or top 20. Davide Farber and Luke Jones on row number 11, with Bernardo Colbe and Mark Sykes on row number 12. And as we continue down, Philip Bruberg and Jonathan Collins on row 13, with Elwin Sykes and Trevor Anderson on row at number 14. And then last but not least, on the 15th row, Michael Lee starting from the pit lane, of course, given the instant points picked up in round number 5. But as our drivers get ready to go, we see our drivers here all itching and waiting for those lights. They will have a brief delay, of course, because they do have to wait until we have all of our drivers confirmed as on the grid and ready. So therefore, it is likely with 30 seconds to go on the countdown procedure, we may just wait the full time. But as we look to the blimp camera here, of course, all our drivers line up on the start-finish straight. None of them caught in the curvature coming out of the final corner, and we just reload the overlay so that way you can see the circuit map in the top right corner of your screen. But now with only 15 seconds to go, we are just waiting on Jamie Dory to take to the grid as we understand it. But then we will be going racing very shortly. 10 seconds left, and it will be on this man. Can Mikey Doble find a way of achieving the impossible, which is to get the Honda Civic to outdrag everybody else? Well, it's time for the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go for race number 1 at Watkins Glen International. As Mikey Doble gets a good launch off the line. Wayne Douglas gets a reasonable launch and starts to gain ground in the run into turn number 1. Meanwhile, look behind Daniel Holmer trying to defend versus Martin Shirley as Gavin Garner just tucks in behind. And then further back we see Jamie Dory already battling 3 wide with Excite Racing's Adam Delmont, and also Nick Clemens getting on through as they all start to muscle the way together into turn number 2. And this is where it could get hairy when they make the way on through on cold tyres. The understeer effects start to creep on in, but it looks like everybody's surviving this time around. Nobody stepping out and going wide, but as they now make the way down towards turn number 5 by the bus stop, you see Wayne Douglas ahead from the draft as he goes into the bus stop chicane ahead of Mikey Doble. And as they all condense together, now it's all about backing off and getting into a line here. No real way to go too wide on the opening lap as they make the way into turn number 5. But look at this, Andrew Pike, he takes a peek, he takes a piece, and Matthew Addy goes deep as a result as they make the way through turn number 5, through the outer loop, and Paul Scott also coming on through, and Addy needs to find some momentum and get himself back up to speed. He's got to play the long game. It is going to be a game of strategy here. In a way, you could say it's a bit of an analogue to touring car meets NASCAR as they make their way through turn 6 and up towards 7, with everybody right now trying to pick their place in the order and wait for the opportunity as they come on through. Again, it's 2 by 2 here, as we can see Matthew Addy right now side by side with Nick Clemens and Jamie Dory and Adam Delmont, the 2 pros behind the pro driver of Clemens. Well, Dory gets ahead as they make the way towards turn number 1, but meanwhile Adam Delmont takes a look as Reese Watt also gets into the mix. It's Reese Watt on the outside of 3 wide as they make the way into turn number 1 once again, and as they come on through, well, now it's 2 by 2 with Adam Delmont and Reese Watt. They're side by side as they make the way up the hill through the S for the second time of asking. They go on the long charge as they make the way up now. Tyre temperature slightly higher, therefore they can start to be a little bit bolder with regards to being flat out and also on the offensive. But meanwhile, as we look to the front of the field here, you can see that Wayne Douglas continues to lead, using the top end of that Veloster to keep the Honda Civic Type R of Mikey Doble at bay, with Gavin Gardner, the beast of the RS3, not quite able to pounce just yet and look for that opportunity. Meanwhile, further back we can see Lee Horn here battling side by side with Joseph Doble, who goes a bit deep but covers off his peers. But as they make the way down with Lee Horn backing off slightly now, we've got Ian Manners trying to go up the inside in the battle for P16. That's P6 in the Prime class. As further behind, that is Isaac Doble, who's staying on the inside. And meanwhile, as they make the way down, Will Redford, who's had a bit of a slippery start to his session today, but poor qualifying run as they make the way, and Will Redford on the inside, and Isaac Doble contact Ian Manners, and we've seen our first instant here as drivers come on through, and well, it's pandemonium at the back of the field with Jonathan Collins almost being picked up, in fact actually being picked up as well, and Davide Farvo and a lot of drivers being impacted there as they came through turn number 6, and we'll take a look back at what exactly happened very shortly. As they make the way on around, we can see as they charge on through here, Elwin Sykes right now, P23, not having the straightest starts with regards to gaining places. He's gained 4, but I think he'd like to gain them more through overtakes rather than being caught up behind an instant and passing it unscathed. And as he looks here with a battle on the inside of him from Trevor Anderson, Anderson trying to make the move with a P23. But as we look from them up to the front of the field here, as they come on into the bus stop chicane once more, we can see right now the top 10 really just staying in formation, all playing calm and safe, as we hear that Michael Lees has also jumped back to the pits after coming out of the pits. Of course, that's where he started from, and I think Lees may have been involved in that incident. Alternatively, there may have been something else that happened to Michael Lees, and in fact we do try to find out what exactly happened very shortly. But before we do, Gavin Gardner here under pressure from Daniel Holmer. Holmer trying to get the move on around the outside into turn 6, and well, Holmer's going to have the inside into 7. Now will Gardner back out and try to get the run into 1, or will he decide to fight it? Will he back out? He does the 4 former rather than the latter, and I think that's going to work out nicely for him. But the problem is here, with the battling they're doing, they've already lost a whole second and 2 tenths to the race leaders, and it may not sound like much given the fact they do have the propensity of the draft, but 1.2 seconds is time. They'll be sorely missed given the fact the draft range of these cars extends out to about 1.8 seconds in terms of time distance. But as you get closer and closer, of course, that slipstream effect gets stronger, and it's about 8 tenths is where you really start to feel that slipstream come into effect. And right now, I think Garner will be hoping that Holmer can get a move on, but of course, with him being in the tow, as they make the way in the run up towards the bus stop chicane, Garner's very close. He's extremely close to the back end of Holmer, but he can't find a way to make the move count. As meanwhile, Luke Jones here a bit further back, battling for P6 in the Prime Plus P17 overall with Benjamin McCluskey. McCluskey defends the inside here as Lee Horns had to come into the pits, as we're hearing off camera with regards to an incident. And Isaac Doble as well with an early retirement from this race. A couple of drivers with retirements, and we'll try to find out what exactly has happened. But some drivers are making ground gradually up through the field, and one of those drivers who is gradually creeping up the field is Will Redford here as he makes the move on the outside. And what is Joseph Doble coming out of turn 5 into 6. Redford up to P15. Very gradually building pace here as the NDA Honda racing driver, and he'll know that given the fact he was absent last time out in Japan, he really does need some major results here to keep him in the hunt versus Mikey Doble with 2 rounds to go after today. But as they make the way down towards turn number 1, coming to the end of lap 4 onto lap number 5, we take a look back at what exactly happened between Nick Clemens and Isaac Doble on lap number 2. Well, this was in the run to turn number 6, and well, Clemens there coming into the scene of accident. He just goes wide, in fact. So what exactly happened further back is the question. Well, Clemens just gets it wrong the outside, and then it's all what happens behind. So we take another look back from the perspective of Isaac Doble, and 3 does not go into 2 into 1 here, and as everybody else came on through, well, that's where it all went wrong for so many, including Ian Manners, who got caught up, and next Jonathan Collins as well. A lot of other drivers, however, taking bumps and scrapes, but surviving it all, and we are trying to understand what happened to Michael at least as we return to live pictures, and we will find out as soon as we possibly can with regards to what happened to our Excite Racing driver. But meanwhile, with the live pictures now, we can see that things are still relatively calm on lap number 5 of 15, and everybody's settling down, and I think looking to the long haul with regards to trying to make those moves. But with regards to Lees, we're not 100% sure what exactly happened, other than he has had to come back into the pit lane, and he has then gone back out once again. So whether perhaps he sped in the pit lane on was the race start, that could be potentially a factor, but whatever it is, we have not seen and we have not had it reported as to what happened to our Excite Racing driver. But meanwhile, what we are seeing here is that Jamie Dury up the inside of Reese Watt, and the prime driver here of Watt decided not to fight too hard, and understandably so, for the simple reason he will not want to get caught up in the mix as they make the way on through and around. And as he comes charging up the hill here, Watt just tucking in behind Dory, with Nick Clemens also behind there for company. But as they come charging down towards the bus stop chicane once again, all the way on through, in towards the braking zone they'll go shortly. The Hondas all staying in line right now, nobody really trying to tease out and move on another driver. But meanwhile, further back, Benjamin McCluskey under pressure from Luke Jones, and more importantly here, 2 by 2 they go into the chicane. It's the CSA Racing team of Farvo and Sykes. Oh goodness me, Farvo gets it wrong. Meanwhile, Trevor Anderson goes the long way around the houses and takes to the grass, battling there with Sykes. Now when Sykes gets the move done, but meanwhile, Davide Farvo are holding the grass. Well, I think he might have to give up the position to Philip Ruberg, who I think would argue that he had the right to the line. And you can see now that as they make the way up to speed in the run down towards turn number 6, that Lee Horner lap down is trying to unlap himself past the group here. But I think the problem for him is he may get ahead for a corner, but then he's got the slipstream factor to worry about the next point of the race as we head towards the halfway mark with now 7 laps on the cards, and we've still got plenty more to go. But as our drivers come charging on through here, make the way onto lap number 7 from the back of the field, we look back up towards the front of the field, and it's Wayne Douglas who still leads with Mikey Doble 2.5 tenths off of him right now. And I think Doble here pushing as hard as he can, but of course that straight line speed deficit plus the weight in that Honda really now starting to take its toll. You think he wanted to hold the lead position as long as he could, but now he's going to really try and find a way to creep on through as we ride on board the gearbox on the Next Gen Racing at yellow lead here. And of course Wayne Douglas in Japan, quite aggressive with those opening lap moves into turn number 1. Many of you will remember, of course, the free wide that happened on the opening lap of the opening race of the evening, where Adam Delmont almost saw his race aspirations end as he made his way out of turn number 1. but Wayne Douglas in the end calmed it down later on in the day, but still absolutely willing to go for it. The Next Gen Racing yellow driver, and you can't fault enthusiasm. It may just have to be tempered, and right now he's cooling his temper, there's no doubt about that, and making sure to manage this race well, as Daniel Holmer still sits 8 tenths off the leader, what is 6 tenths off of Mikey Doble, and now the rest of the pursuing pack is gradually creeping on up as they make their way on through. But meanwhile, we look to the next pack, and we see it's Alan McCain who leads that group for a brief while, but now Paul Scott's up the inside into 90 right, and as they make their way through turn number 1, he'll have Andrew White to give him a tow, which in the already promising Audi RS3 here today, that may be more than enough for the Next Gen Racing blue driver to get breathing room and go charging off into the distance if he can. And McCain sitting at 3 tenths back. He is being dropped, McCain, and that is because the compound effects of the straight line speed of the RS3 plus also the tow of Bike in front, and Paul Scott's not done. He's hungry, he wants another place. He goes side by side into bus stop, and there's contact with Paul Scott as he tries to go around and hold it to the inside of bus stop exit. And as they make the way into turn number 5, Paul Scott loses dearly as meanwhile, oh goodness me, what on earth has happened here? We've got an off track for Jamie Dory, and I think there might be a little bit more to it than meets the eye as Dory's returning to the circuit. We saw him briefly off camera, but we saw a pack of 6 coming together, and in fact we try to find out very shortly what exactly happened as Mark Sykes makes his way past Jamie Dory, but I think Dory's going to hold the inside here in the run to turn number 6, and meanwhile just ahead of them, McCluskey battling again with Jones, and McCluskey gets back ahead. It's the Elantra ahead now, the privateer, who picks up the place from Jones, but I think Jones will want to have another go at him in the run to 90 right at the end of this lap and going on to the next one. But meanwhile up front here in the Prime class, we can see Matthew Addy up the inside of McCain, and well, Addy's now got to pounce with Paul Scott making that error in the attempt to pass what was Andrew Pike. He's got to go win as they make the way on through. Of course, there was contact between Pike and Scott, but then the run off circuit costing Scott very dearly, and as they make their way through for it up towards 5, it's going to be a long run here for Addy. It will feel like an eternity on this straight as he heads up towards the braking zone, and meanwhile McCain takes a peek, he can't find it, and now has to back out once again. But Addy really in the pressure position, which is that he will not have the straight line speed to run away from the iRacing Esports Elantra. Instead, all he's got to do is try and make sure he keeps enough in the tank, so that way when he does come down to battling, he can battle hard and dig in deep into each and every corner and really slow the race down for the pair. Meanwhile behind, you can see in the rear of the picture Reese Watt ahead of what is there Will Redford. Nick Clemens trying to get into the fight, but Reese Watt was fourth place in the Prime class right now, ahead of the 2 Pro drivers as the Pros battle into turn number 6. Redford is ahead of Nick Clemens on the exit of the corner here. Redford continues to pick his way gradually up through the field as they make the way out to turn number 7 on to another lap, and we take a look back at what exactly happened to, well, not firstly Jamie Dory, but to Darrell Farber and Philip Kruberg. Well, we'll wait until Redford there trying to make the move on the inside of White into 90 right turn 1, and Clemens trying to pick his way on through as well. Can he get it done here as it's Hondas galore as they make the way out to 1 and up towards 4 through the S's? And Clemens can't find it as they line up together here and now make the way on down the straight, and we take a look at what's happened to Davide Farber and Philip Bruberg. Well, the 2 of them were battling for position further down the order as they made the way down. Oh, goodness me! And it looks as though there's a little bit of contact to the rear of Farber's car. The rear, what was the rear right, it was the rear left-hand side from the driver's perspective, and that led to both drivers coming together. And we just take a look back at what exactly happened from the roll cage of Bruberg, and it was the tiniest of taps there. It couldn't have been any closer than the Bright Esports driver in the end, and the car that's wounded, well, he's just a passenger at that point as the car came to a standstill. And then we take a look at what happened to Jamie Dory a little bit later in the run down towards the bus stop chicane. And as he came on down here, Jamie Dory on the inside, it's a tap from Adam Delmont, a similar situation, and that's what led to Dory being turned. And then as we look to the group coming through, well, Adam Delmont there being picked up in the mix, and that's what we call with Dory being off camera when we arose at the scene of the incident. And now we look back to our live pictures there, and well, a couple of tricky moments at the bus stop chicane, it would seem, and a couple of drivers coming away with significant damage to their race aspirations in race number 1 of 3 here at the Glen. But as the drivers make the way around, we've still got plenty of battling to come, there's no doubt about it. And whether it is the battle here to make their way into P12, Nick Clemens battling with Reese Watt, the Pro of Clemens versus the Prime of Watt, and Watt wants every potential position. and understandably, because he wants to be as close as possible to Scott McCain and Addy. If not in this race, then when we go into race number 2, with the grid being set based on the results of race number 1. But in the end, Clemens will go up the inside. Can Delmont find a way on through as well around Reese? What he can't. But look at Joseph Doble, meanwhile, having to wait here and be the patient hunter, running P5 in the prime class. He wants to take that P4 off of Reese Watt, but the problem is he's got Adam Delmont between him and his main target. Meanwhile, we look all the way out to the front of the field, and it is still Wayne Douglas ahead of Mikey Doble. But interestingly, Daniel Holman, Gavin Garner have brought up to this group, and also look at that, Martin Shirley at the back of the group, and also Sam Smith, who's within 1.1 seconds. This top 6 are all within a chance of winning this race right now as they make the way down into turn number 1, and we ride on board with the Simtech Racing driver of Shirley as he heads out 90 right. Now lap number 12 at this point, of course, now we'll start to see the gloves come off a little bit for our drivers, because for so long we have seen them all relatively run in formation, and I think Mikey Doble and Daniel Holmer have both been focused on staying as close as possible to Douglas. Meanwhile, Gavin Garner, who's really held himself back, I would argue, over the opening half of this race. I think now we'll start to see him try and use the legs, as in fact they do start to go for it in the run under braking as we look to the front of the field. And Douglas here, he's got traffic as well in the form of Farber and Jonathan Collins just up the road. Now if the traffic falls at the right space, this could actually be beneficial for Douglas, because he'll get a tow in the run down the straights, and that will keep him safe for a time. If the traffic however comes mid-corner apex, that's going to cost him dearly on the exits. We see there Farbo pulling over and letting everybody go that he can see coming, but I don't think Farbo recognises there's that many coming right now, as it is the long train, and then Smith just tucks in behind as we see them all coming on through, and Farbo still holding firm as Smith now tries to creep his way out the inside here and stay with them, but Farbo comes back to racing line, and understandably he's got to go somewhere in the end. Meanwhile, Reese Watt and Joseph Doble battling for P4 in the prime class. They make the way into turn number 7 for what will be on the 12th lap, and as they go on to lap number 13, the gloves are off between them now that Delmont, Clemens and Redford are clear of them. The 3 pros have ascended. Meanwhile, the 2 primes are still battling one another hard here for P14 as they head down towards the braking zone on lap number 13 for turn number 1. They continue to push it hard. Meanwhile, at the front of the prime class, not to forget about the fact that we do have a freeway battle with the prime lead. It is Addy who leads, with Andrew Pike as his tow, if you will, the pro driver just ahead of him from the Sim Racing Collective, but behind the Next Gen Racing yellow driver is the pair of Alan McCain and Paul Scott, and now Matthew Addy is going to try and do what Paul Scott was not able to do a few laps ago, which is try and pass Pike, but he can't find it, and as they make the way for the bus stop chicane, he has to wait once again as they make the way on down and around. But meanwhile, at the front of the field overall, and in the pro class, it's Douglas versus Doble, and Doble's trying to make his run here into turn number 6 as they come on through. Doble up the inside here, he'll take the lead position once more, and can he hold off Douglas now with 2 more laps to go on the exit of the final corner here as they make the way on out. They come past the wall, and as they come roaring on through, it is Mikey Doble lead to head of Wayne Douglas, Daniel Holman, Gavin Garner, Martin Shirley and Sam Smith, with then there being a 5-second gap to P7 and back as they make the way into turn number 1 for the penultimate time in this race. But as they come on through, Gavin Garner goes purple with everybody with 17.296. He's now starting to turn it up as they make the way through the right into left of the S's here. Now can the Verona Motorsport driver pick his way through this time around and get ahead of Daniel Holmer, or will he just play it safe and decide to play for P4 in race number 1 to set himself up? Well, I think he's also going to be focusing on what's happening between these two at the very front, with Douglas here and Doble, and Douglas is trying to go around outside to inside for a bus stop, and he gets it there as Doble lifts off slightly in the run into the corner with a tighter apex line as they make the way down. You can see now Douglas really being pressured here as they head on through, and Mikey Doble staying as close as possible as we ride on board here with your championship leader as he comes on down through turn number 6 and up towards turn number 5 and up towards 6, and of course he will have 2 cars right behind him, albeit we can't quite see him in his rearview mirror, but he cuts the inside. It goes all deep on the inside under braking, and as he comes on through, it's a nice move from Doble, but can he get it done? No, Douglas there uses the space available, and as they cut around through the final corner here to go on to the final lap, it's white flag out here. It's Wayne Douglas who leads, Mikey Doble on the hunt with Daniel Holman, Gavin Garner behind. That's the battle for the overall win and the pro win. Meanwhile, in the prime class, it's Matthew Addy who leads with Alan McCain and Paul Scott just behind. The trio separated by only a tenth, if that, between each car, and as they make the way through turn number 1, we look back up to the leaders right now as they make the way through the S's, and Douglas still holding Doble at bay, but Daniel Holman now looks to pounce as they come on through. It's 2 by 2 here with Gavin Garner also looking up the inside. Martin Shirley behind, he can't get close enough. Meanwhile, Doble here losing out in the straight. You can see the Veloster has the edge, and as they make their way into the braking zone of the bus stop, they all go 2 by 2 still, and it's going to get very close, but they all just about scrape through. Garner there almost loses his nose off the front of the rear, we should say, of Daniel Holmes, Bright Esports Elantra, and as they make the way down, Doble gets it done and takes the lead of the class. He exits the bus stop and into 5. He holds on for now with a gap of half a second as they make their way towards the final 2 corners. Meanwhile, further back, Alan McCain on the inside of Paul Scott. They head on through. Turn number 5 and in towards 6 is going to be a drag race for them. Who can beat the other in the run to turn number 6? Well, we have to cut away from them. For as he makes his way out of the final corner, he saved it to the last moment, but he's done it. And as he comes to the line, Mikey Doble will be your winner in race number 1 by 2.5 tenths over Wayne Douglas P2, Daniel Homer P3, Gavin Garner P4, Martin Shirley P5, Sam Smith P6, Andrew Pike P7, and it is Matthew Addy who takes the prime checker flag, P8 overall, ahead of Alan McCain and Paul Scott to the line. Will Redford comes home P11 with Adam Delmont there, P12 ahead of Nick Clibbins, and it is Reese Watt holding off Joseph Doble to the finish in the battle for the prime top 5. P4 in class for Reese Watt, Joseph Doble P5, Benjamin McCluskey on his debut in the prime class, the privateer P6, P16 overall ahead of Luke Jones, and then it will be Mark Sykes ahead of Trev Anderson as they all come on through here to complete their race, with Jamie Dory P20 in a difficult start to his proceedings, with then Bernardo Colbe, the last driver to finish on the lead lap. The Garton McColbe racing driver here coming on through the final corner very shortly. And as he makes his way through the right-hander, heading on through the number 8 car, it has been a close, a tense race. We have also had some other finishers of Davide Fava, Jonathan Collins, Lee Horn, Ian Manners, Philip Bruberg and Michael Leese. And also I believe Isaac Doble coming through shortly, but Bernardo Colbe, the last driver to finish on the lead lap. And we are waiting, I believe, for Isaac Doble to finish his race in P28, 2 laps down, which he has just done so, as you see him there. But fantastic racing up and down the field. And as our drivers come on through and into the pit lane, when we look to Wayne Douglas here, P2 overall, and I think wondering whether he could have potentially just held on to that lead for a little bit longer to bring it home, but still I think he also knows now that he does have the equal measure of Mikey Doble here, and he may just be able to pull off a surprise in race 2, if not race number 3. And how about this? Matthew Addy continues that run of wins from last time out in Japan, with Alan McCain and Paul Scott not too far off the pace from him, and right up there. Could we see McCain or Scott bring home their maiden wins of the season? That'll be the question for race number 2 and also race number 3. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take you through the race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. Well, as we can see then in our first race of the day at Watkins Glen in round 6 of season 2 of the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship hosted on iRacing. Overall result wise, Mikey Doble bringing home the win there for NDA Honda Racing by 2.5 tenths over Wayne Douglas when all said and done. The Next Gen Racing yellow driver just not quite able to keep the NDA Honda Racing driver behind, and then Bright Esports' Daniel Homer taking the 3rd step on the overall pro podium in a brilliant drive ahead of Gavin Gardner and Martin Shirley. Outside the top 5, Sam Smith there P6 ahead of Andrew Pike P7. The Sim Racing Collective driver leading the way ahead of the trio from the Prime class of Matthew Addy for Next Gen Racing Yellow, who took the Prime win ahead of iRacing Esports' Alan McCain, and then Paul Scott from Next Gen Racing Blue completing the top 10 and also completing the Prime podium. Will Redford best of the rest there, and that is your top 18 on screen. But as we now come on to what is the individual class results, as we always do, we start off with the pros, and Mikey Doble there, your winner, as we just said previously, ahead of Wayne Douglas and Daniel Homer, with Gavin Gardner and Martin Shirley completing the pro top 5. Sam Smith P6, Andrew Pike P7, and then Will Redford P8 in a reasonable start to his day, albeit having to battle his way up through the order between the pros and primes around him. Adam Delmont P9 for Excite Racing, and then Nick Clibbins in P10 for iRace Esports. Jamie Dory there P11 in a difficult start, with that instant costing him very dearly at the bus stop chicane, and then Michael Leese finishing a lap down in the end for Excite Racing, P12 in the class. And then coming to the Pro-Am classification, and we can see Matthew Addy in the end taking the win by 1.2 seconds over Alan McCain, with Paul Scott only a further 3 tenths behind, almost 4 tenths behind, and then Reese Watt for JW Motorsport not quite able to stay with the top 3, but able to keep Joseph Doble at bay, and that is a critical finish for Reese Watt, in the fact that, of course, he'll need to finish ahead of Joseph Doble to get ahead of him to charge after Matthew Addy, but with the pair there being a couple of places off of the race winner, you would imagine now that race number 2 is going to become ever more critical. Benjamin McCluskey P6 in a great performance, battling with Luke Jones all the way to the end. The two of them separated by 3 tenths at line. Mark Sykes P8, Trev Anderson P9, and then was Bernardo Colbe, the last of the Pro-Am finishers on the lead lap, with best of the rest, Davide Favo P11 involved in that instant, of course, which cost him very dear, ahead of Jonathan Collins, Lee Horn, Ian Manners, Philip Bruberg, Isaac Doble, and then Elwin Sykes completing your Pro-Am finishers there 4 laps down come the finish. But what a fantastic race number 1, there's no doubt about it, and we've still got plenty more to go, ladies and gentlemen. Race number 2 will be coming up very shortly in approximately the next 5 minutes. We'll be back soon. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the build-up to round number 6, race 2, as our drivers get ready to go once again at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Of course, we're racing at the Cup Circuit, synonymous with NASCAR visiting every year, and really it was in race number 1, Touring Car meets NASCAR via the NXTCC, where our drivers are running it in straight line formation for the majority of the laps, and it was in the final couple of laps where we did see our protagonists go to work and town to town on one another with regards to trying to bring home that ultimate win. In the pro class, it was Mikey Doble picked up the win ahead of Wayne Douglas, and as we see Wayne Douglas in the background here making his way on around now, he'll be looking to try and get the upper hand on Doble in race number 2. There's no question about it, but can he do so? That will be the ultimate challenge that confronts him. And meanwhile, in the Pro-Am class, it was Matthew Addy who managed to steer clear of the battling behind between McCain and Scott, and can he do the same in race number 2 and make it 2 out of 2? Because if he can do, much like Doble, it will give him a championship advantage that is only going to set him up nicely for race number 3 and the 2 rounds that follow to wrap up the season. But of course, we have to take it one race at a time, because as we've seen all the way over the course of season 2 and all the way through season 1, anything can happen in the NXTCC. You can't take anything for granted. And speaking of things you can't take for granted, well, one thing we did talk about very early on in race number 1 was the fact that it was observed by K-Teams in the Facebook chat that Michael Lease had to return to the pits, and we did suggest potentially that he'd been caught speeding in the pit lane at race start, and we have had it confirmed that he had sped on his exit out of the pit lane at race start, and therefore he was called back into the pits to do another start from the pit lane, and therefore as part of the automated iRacing shielding system, that's what led to him losing out on what could have been some significant gains in race number 1. And we also did have a disqualification from race number 1 due to damage picked up on the car and not returned to the pits with a meatball flag for, I believe it was Elwin Sykes in race number 1. As we see him making his way around this time, of course, in a freshly repaired CSA racing Audi RS3. He'll be looking to do it all again, but he will be starting from the back of the grid. Much like Lisa will be starting a little bit further up, but not too far up. Therefore, 2 drivers will be looking to try and bounce back very rapidly. But as they make the way around right now in this practice warm-up session, going into the second race, we're not going to have too much an opportunity to catch any of the drivers before they get ready to go. In fact, we may have to reserve that for the build-up to race number 3. But you can imagine all of our drivers right now feeling confident and itching to go racing. And well, can we grab any of our drivers? That will be the big question, to see if we can get any of them. And we may have the opportunity to very quickly catch up with Paul Scott if he is available, although I don't think Paul Scott is available at the moment. He's not out on circuit or in the pit lane, so we are not going to be able to catch word of him. It would have been interesting to hear how his battle went with Alan McCain from his perspective, as we see McCain making his way on down towards turn number 1 with a minute to go. So I think we might have to leave holding a pre-race interview of any of our drivers, but as we do get ready, you can imagine there's definitely going to be sparks flying. And as we look to Wayne Douglas, he getting a bit wrong at the bus stop chicane, well, he'll be bringing it together shortly. But the one driver who we reckon may just try and fight his way up through the field as rapidly as possible and be the buzzard in the pack, it is JW Motorsports' Reese Watt. We saw him battling hard with Joseph Doble for P4 in the Pro-Am class in race number 1. If he can break clear of Joseph Doble early and go hunting after the top 3 in the class, there's no reason why he cannot put the pressure back onto Addy, but he needs an early break in order to do so. But if we know one thing about Reese Watt is that when he gets his head down, he's practically unstoppable. He showed that earlier in the season, and I think he may just go to show it on here as he makes his way deep and around through turn number 5 as he comes roaring on through here. 30 seconds left on the timer, and now everybody's set, ready to go, and everybody waiting to see how it will play on out in race number 2, because of course we do also have the consideration of the reverse grid for race number 3. And just to remind you, P9 is not in the lottery bowl because it was drawn last time out in Japan, so we will have P6, 7, 8, 10, 11 and 12 available. And of course you want to finish inside the top 6 to be guaranteed in that reverse grid draw and be able to place inside the reversed portion of the grid. But if you can fight your way up into P12 or higher, then you do have a chance. The reverse grid could be tantamount to success as the checker flag comes out in the practice session, and it's time for us to set the grid for race 2. So they take to the grid as follows for our second race of the day. Mikey Doble once again on pole for NDA Honda Racing, joined by Wayne Douglas for NXTGEN Racing Yellow. The two belligerents go toe-to-toe once more. Daniel Holm will start P3 with Gavin Gardner alongside on row at number 2. The Runner Motorsport driver looking to try and deploy a little bit more of the Audi this time out. There's no question about it, with row number 3 being counted of Martin Shirley for Simset Racing and Sam Smith from iRacing Esports. And Sam Smith there looking to get in the mix a little bit more later on in the race. Andrew Pye and Matthew Addy line up on the full throw. There's your Pro-Am pole sitter of Matthew Addy, with Alan McCain and Paul Scott on row at number 5, and then Will Redford and Adam Delmont on row at number 6. Row 7 contested by Nick Clibbins and Reese Watt, with Joseph Dower and Benjamin McCluskey on row number 8, and it's Luke Jones and Mark Sykes on row at number 9, with Trevor Anderson and Jamie Dory completing the top 10, Bernardo Colbe and Davide Favo on row number 11, Jonathan Collins and Lee Horn on row number 12, and then coming up for the last few rows, Manners, Bruberg, Lees, Doble and Sykes. But it's time for us to go racing, ladies and gentlemen. The lights are here. It's 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for race number 2. Here's once again Mikey Doble looks to get the launch he desires, and this time he gets a better launch compared to Wayne Douglas as they head on down. But look, meanwhile Matthew Addy trying to part the seas in the midfield there as they come into the braking zone. As they do, he finds himself battling side by side with Smith there, and also Pike, and Pike gets clear, but Smith still finds himself in the battle as they head on up the hill this time around, and as they come roaring on through, well, it looks so everybody's settling down early as they go 2 by 2, hurrah, up the hill. As they come through, the S's, Luke Jones holding off Jamie Dory there, and Jamie Dory losing out slightly in the starting run, but still looking to gain a little bit more as he heads on down. But meanwhile, at the front of the field, we can see here how it's all starting to stack together in the battle for P2. And Gavin Gardner trying to go around the outside there of Daniel Holmer. Holmer in return, meanwhile holding firm as he brings it to the outside of turn number 5. Further back, Alan McCain side by side with teammate Nick Clemens. Clemens on the outside, McCain on the inside as they battle their way down through 5 and up towards 6 they draw, with Samson a little bit further up in front of them as they come on through. But Addy steps off the circuit there, and Alan McCain gets his nose in front as they make their way down towards turn number 6. Onto the anchors they go. Now will McCain be able to hold on and use Nick Clemens as a buffer in order to keep Addy behind? Well, Clemens goes a bit deep, but Addy's still there as they make their way around the outside. Clemens tries to defend, he wants to work with his teammate and gain some places overall, and as they come across the timeline, they're still too wide as they head down towards turn number 1. And as we look to the front of the field, it is Doble who leads, ahead of Douglas by 7/10 of a second. Holmer P3, Garner P4, Pike P5, then it's Martin Shirley P6, Redford P7, followed by Smith, and there's McCain, who is your prime leader, ahead of Matthew Addy P10, Nick Clemens best of the rest P11 as they head up the hill, and Clemens and Addy are still battling one another side by side. They are not letting one another go, and well, Addy in the end just about gets ahead with the straight line speed advantage of the velocity. It's marginal, but it counts for something in these long runs. And as they make the way on lap number 2, we look a bit further up to Andrew Pike, who battles with Shirley as they make the way into the bus stop, and he gets ahead there in a smooth move as they make the way down into turn number 5, and behind them Adam Delmont as we got a car wide, and it's all gone wrong at the bus stop for multiple drivers. Now could this warrant more drivers being lost out in the overall proceedings? Well, I think the seas have passed, so as a result they will not have to worry about a safety car, but multiple drivers were caught up in that, and we'll try and find out exactly who was caught up in it in short order. But a difficult one for many a driver there, and not the way they wanted it to go. And Lee Horn meanwhile with a difficult start a long way back, but meanwhile we look here to what is Davide Favo, who right now continues on, but it's been a difficult one for him as well, albeit he's gained a few places, and given the fact that the drivers in front of him have all been involved in a major shunt coming through the bus stop chicane. But meanwhile, as we look from Favo to behind Isaac Doble, they're battling with Elwin Sykes and just tucked behind Jonathan Collins, but we need to understand what exactly triggered off that as they look to go 3 wide here, do the trio in the battle for P10 in the prime class. What is P21? But Collins going overly deep, and Doble then just picks up the pieces on the inside as they make the way out. But Collins, of course, now will have the tow all the way. But meanwhile, we look up to the front of the field here, and it's going to be 3 wide in the battle for P5. It's going to be Shirley on the inside, Pike in the middle, and Redford around the outside. Who's going to back out? Nobody wants to back out, and as they all come on through, Shirley just simply takes the position. Meanwhile, Pike and what is there, Redford come together, and Sam Smith, well, he makes an absolute ham sandwich of the bus stop chicane, but he finds himself on the inside through the outer loop of 5, and as they make their way down towards 6 now, now. Smith holding position, I think, much like Elwin Sykes has said in the YouTube chat, let's go. Well, Sam Smith right now, I think, is taking the logic and let's go and gets the place on Redfield. McCain coming and through, and the iRacing Esport pair right now really working together here, and it's working out a wonder for McCain, who now sits P8, 4 places clear of next driver in the Pro-Am class of Paul Scott, who has taken over from Matthew Addy in the P2 position in class, P13 overall. As they make their way down towards turn number 1, we look back to Luke Jones here, battling with Bernardo Colbe, and these two have gained massively with everything that's happened in the Pro-Am class behind, as now they battle for P4 in class, and they'll both want to stop fighting too hard, because they can look ahead and see that's Matthew Addy, championship leader, who's within a whole second of them, and if they can push on here together, they may just find themselves battling for a spot on the podium, if they can bring Addy into the brawl. But as they make their way up the hill, we look even further back to, in fact, we look a bit further forward to Jamie Dory here, who's trying to hold off Paul Scott, and Paul Scott wanted to get a move on and tucking in behind, albeit taking a little peek to the inside there. I think trying to say to Dory, you need to get a move on, because right now class lead is disappearing off up the road, and I do not want to lose sight of it. Meanwhile, further back, Elwin Sykes here battling with Jonathan Collins. These two had a little bit of a coming together early on, as we're to understand it, as we see some smoke going up, there's some brake dust coming on through at what is the end of the bus stop chicane, but it seems like everybody's made it through unscathed this time around. But we do take a look back into what happened only a lap ago. So this was in the run down, and Joseph Doble and Mark Sykes, I believe, had a bit of a coming together. Well, no, Joseph Doble just got it wrong, and in the end, there was contact with Mark Sykes, and the two of them came together, with Doble having that error into the corner, and, well, that really led to everything else that happened afterwards. And looking at it from Davide Farbo's perspective, you'll see here with cars going wrong, and there was the number, I believe, the number 8 car of Trev Anderson going around, Davide Farbo just being a passenger into the side of Anderson, the JW Motorsport driver being sent aside. As we then look back to the live pictures now, that's what's really cost a huge portion of the Pro-Am class and 1. We've got a number of drivers who've risen through the field very rapidly indeed. But meanwhile, speaking of rising here, we look up to the front of the field, and the live pictures here going on to lap number 5, and Daniel Holmer ahead of Gavin Gardner. This top 4 much like before, but the difference is they have dropped P5 driver on Martin Shirley this time, who is now starting to break away from Sam Smith. And for Shirley, I think he's just got to try and keep digging in here and continuing the breakaway. If he can break away enough, then he'll be reliant on Gardner, Holmer, Douglas and Doble falling backwards towards him, but it takes all the pressure off of him, and he can look to deliver those laps. As they make their way up towards turn number 6, you can see that Andrew Pike covering off McCain as they make their way through the left hand. In fact, Sam Smith has got ahead of Pike. Meanwhile, McCain has not been able to find a way on through, and now McCain is starting to be pushed back a little bit as they make their way through the right-hander of turn number 7 and head on to the next lap of 6. And as they come on down here, the problem that McCain has is not the driver in front, it's the 4 drivers behind the pros who will want the place off of McCain to go hunting after Pike. That's the pros of Redford, Delmont, Clemens and Dory. Given the fact they'll look at McCain, they'll know they can battle him for overall championship position, but their bigger quandary is battling for pro class position as they make the way up the hill. And as they come charging on through, Paul Scott is not too far off of the pros that are making their way up through the S's right now, with Matthew Addy only 6 tenths behind as well. So McCain has to be very tactical about how he lets them go. Meanwhile, as they come on through, here's Nick Clemens battling with Jamie Dory as they head up towards turn number 5. But before they do, it's the bus stop chicane that awaits them, and then into the braking zone. I think we've had a bit of an instant here through the chicane. I think Wayne Douglas is off circuit. In fact, that is Wayne Douglas rejoining. He's got to be careful there, but he manages to stop the car in time. But what on earth has happened to race lead battler Wayne Douglas? Well, this was in the run into the bus stop chicane. Doble is inside. Now, was there contact between the two of them? Douglas turned on in. No, there was not. But the car bounced off of the bus stop chicane, curving, and as a result, straight into the wall. And Wayne Douglas's race lies in tatters. That is a costly moment for the NXTGEN Racing yellow driver as we return to live pictures now. And Douglas there could not have afforded with that as they make the way up towards turn number 7. We say hello then in the YouTube chat to Ren Lee, and as they make the way on the round here on the live pictures, Douglas having to come into the pits. I think that will be to serve a meatball flag, whereby the car does need to be repaired. It's not in a safe racing condition. But with that releases Mikey Doble, now the NDA Honda racing driver, to try and make a break from Daniel Holman and Gavin Gardner. And these two now really do need to think about what's their game plan. Are they battling for P2, or are they going to briefly work together to battle for the win of this race late on? We'll pause that thought because Sam Smith here looking looking for the move on Martin Shirley, and meanwhile behind we can see here Adam Delmont and McCain trading paint as they make the way into the chicane with Nick Clemens just behind. And well, you can see there Clemens trying to make the return on Jamie Dory, but Dory simply takes the position off him, with Clemens going deep into the bus stop chicane as they make the way up to speed. They're coming out to turn number 5, slingshotting the way out of the corner, and as they make the way down towards 6, you can see Paul Scott as well now getting closer. And that's the thing for Paul Scott. He needs to get into this mix. He needs to be there when McCain is eventually, as we would understand it, is eventually passed by Dorian Clemens. Albeit Clemens is going to be the big question mark. Will Clemens sacrifice his race with the pros in order to work with his teammate to defend position and pick up ultimate team points and also prime points? We'll have to see, as meanwhile Matthew Addy wastes no time with Paul Scott being bunched in behind Clemens on the exit of 7. Addy's going to look up the inside here under braking into 90 right, and as they come on through, Addy drifts his way in a brief lock up on the front left right tyre. He just about survives it as Paul Scott gets very close, and we ride on board here with the Next Gen Racing blue driver as he rides on the rear bumper of the Veloster in front. And as he powers up through the gearbox, of course, the Audi absolutely geared for racing all the way down the straights here at Watkins Glen. And as they make the way up towards the bus stop, you can see Addy bringing the car slightly to the centre. Paul Scott thinking about doing the same, but stays behind in the end. He knows that right now these two need to work together to go under that McCain, but Paul Scott carries too much speed, and that's going to cost him dearly as he slides his way back onto the circuit. But thankfully, it's not a catastrophe. It's just a brief blip in an otherwise what has been perfect race so far. And meanwhile, we look up to the new leader of this race. It is Daniel Holmer, who has passed Mikey Doble for the lead. How did that happen, I hear you ask? Well, here's a replay. We was in the run down towards the bus stop chicane, and Doble defending. Gardner picking the line of Doble here, interesting enough, and then going back behind Holmer. And as they came on through, well, Doble just simply backing off there and deciding to let Holmer go. Now, is this wise is the question I hear you ask. I think if Daniel Holmer can make this break count, he may just run off into the distance, but we do have to keep in mind Doble, of course, the pole sitter in the Honda Civic Type R. Whilst he may have a bit of toe on his lap, albeit we didn't see his lap directly at the same time, to put the Honda on pole in qualifying means that he's got a lot of natural pace here, not just based on slipstream, and I think Daniel Holm will be more than cognizant of that as they make the way down towards the bus stop this time around. Gavin Gardner, meanwhile, now starting to try and pick a fight with the NDA Honda racing driver as they make the way on in. Meanwhile, behind Sam Smith on the outside to inside line versus Shirley, who just gets it slightly wrong there on the apex curve of the first part of the bus stop chicane under braking and has to back out, otherwise losing the car. He looks like he's going to hit the wall with the rear of the car, in fact, and that's why he had to stop the car before it went loose. And as they make the way out to 5, down towards 6 they go. Well, Shirley loses the place for now, but he's still within 1/10 as they make the way out towards turn number 6. He switches it back to the outside, can't find the move this time around as they come into turn number 6 and just waits his turn as they make the way in towards 7. They've still got plenty of time to go in this race, all things considered. And meanwhile, a class that we haven't talked about too much too recently, the Prime class here, beyond the P2 battle. We looked at the battle for P5 in the Prime class, and this is Reese Watt trying to go on the offensive versus Fernando Colbe after, of course, many a Prime driver with that incident on lap number 2 falling out of sequence, and it's enabled a lot of drivers who are a lot further down the order on the grid to really rise up into that top 5. But Reese Watt here looks up the inside of Colbe, but Colbe outbrakes him into 90 right, and Watt trying to put the pressure on. And as they come on out at turn number 1, of course, with Luke Jones 8.5 tenths up the road, what would love to be in the toe of his teammate, but instead Colbe's going to take that position for the time being as they head on through, up through 3, in towards 4, and Watt this time not able to find the place he wants to pick up as they come charging up towards the bus stop chicane. You can see there the gap's close, but it's just not enough. Meanwhile, going very slowly is Sam Smith. What on earth has happened? There's something broken on Sam Smith's car. There's sparks coming out. I think the front right tyre's gone. He's got a puncture. The whole wheel has come off in terms of the tyre, and as he makes his way around, that's a disaster for Sam Smith. What exactly happened to the iRacing Esports driver? As he made his way into turn number 6, it didn't happen there, he just had an off track. In fact, we wind forward a little bit, and as we do, we've just had it whispered IE, clip the barrier at the bus stop chicane, and we're going to see it here on the reap. Oh my good lord! And that is a nasty whack for the iRacing Esports driver, and well, that explains the whole story. You can see Adam Delmont there flashing his lights saying, look, I'm coming through, stay clear. But the iRacing Esports driver there with a mistake that is going to put him into the pits. If they can get that car repaired and get it back out in time, well, that'll be a miracle work being done by the pit crew. But meanwhile, as one falls, it opens up an opportunity for everyone else behind, and now it is Redford battling with Andrew Pike for P5 overall and in class as they make the way through turn number 4. Down towards the bus stop they go, and it's Redford on the inside, but Pike will use the straight line supremacy of the Elantra on the Honda, but he has to cut back in the end. He can't find the momentum around the outside. I think he'll wait for a little bit later on as Delmont, McCain, Dory and Clibbins are in the rear of their view as Clibbins there just drifts his way out of the bus stop, trying to push it hard, but pushing too hard there and taking a bit too much curb. And as he comes on down through 5, now he has to wait and reset again to try going hunting after Jamie Dory, as meanwhile Matthew Addy and Paul Scott have not been able to close up to Dorian Clibbins, and therefore they have fallen away from Alan McCain. But behind them, this is where the big battle is happening, with Reese Watt and Benjamin McCluskey getting ahead of Bernardo Colby. And as they come on down through 5 and up towards 6, what exactly happened there? I think Colby going deep into turn number 5, that has cost him in terms of position, and McCluskey picks up P6 in class once again, P15 overall as they make the way out to the final corner and on to lap number 12 now. The time is ticking down in terms of laps remaining as our drivers charge on, and with the time remaining now, well, you'd imagine that the intensity of the battles at the very tip of the spear will only start to increase, and particularly we're thinking about this battle for the lead right now. It's Bright Esports' Daniel Holmer who leads, and he's no stranger to leading and winning a race in the NXTCC, but the problem he has got behind him is he is dealing with the championship leader and the man who right now is the favourite to take the championship crown come the end of the season, Mikey Doble, who has proven to be the forward in everybody's side when he's right behind the leader. He finds a way to get into your head, he finds a way to put the pressure on, and he finds a way, if that doesn't work, to just simply put the space and make the move at the very last moment. And as he comes through turn 6 into 7 now, it continues to tick on the time. He's still got 3 more laps as they come out of turn number 7 this time around. We saw him go for lead versus Wayne Douglas on lap number 14 in race number 1. When will he do it this time? That'll be the question. Well, I think he's covering off Gavin Garner, with Garner having a really good run out of turn 7 into 1, and the runner motorsport driver there having to cut back in. But what's very interesting is in terms of the way these two are working, notice how Gardner's not pushing the tempo too hard on Doble, and I think Gardner's also really thinking about he wants that win just as much as Doble does. He doesn't want this to be a fight for P2. He wants to be the man on the top step. He's had the taste of the victory champagne in Japan, and he wants more of it as they make the way up towards the bus stop here. And now Doble, with the lack of top end speed, with Holmer giving the toe to Gardner, Doble holds on in. Notice how Gardner backs out again under braking into the chicane. He wants Doble to really stay in formation. He doesn't want the two of them to fall away. Meanwhile, further back in the battle for what is P14 overall, P5 in the Prime class, in fact P4 in the Prime class, it is Reese Watt who takes the position ahead of Luke Jones, his teammate for JW Motorsport, and then Benjamin McCluskey was looking for the move on both of them, now falls back, and meanwhile Colby tries to squeeze himself on the inside into turn number 5. That's a bold move there from Colby. He's going to make it work, however, interesting enough, but then again McCluskey can use the runoff area, and Colby just simply stays tucked in behind, very close between these two as they make the way into turn number 6, coming roaring on through the left into right. And as they make the way through the corners here, the JW Motorsport pair of Reese Watt and Jones now will try and break away comfortably, as meanwhile behind we have what is here Davide Favo battling for P8 in the Prime class, P17 overall, with Philip Bruberg right behind him, and these two both going for it here, wanting to pick up what will be a good haul of points in the class standings. But as they make their way across the timeline onto the penultimate lap, Bruberg looks up the inside, Favo knows it's coming, he's going to stay on the outside then take the more natural line, which means he can carry a bit more speed, but he goes deep as a result. Now Bruberg will have the run all the way out towards the chicane. Meanwhile, we look back to Matthew Addy here, side by side with Paul Scott in the battle for P2 in the Prime class. Scott on the outside, Addy on the inside, they both make it onto the brakes, and in the end Paul Scott goes around the outside. As meanwhile McCluskey comes back here at Luke Jones. Jones on the inside in the run to the corner left of your picture, and as McCluskey holds firm there, they go 2 wide, and McCluskey with a lovely move comes back at Luke Jones and retakes P5 in the Prime class, P14 overall, as they roll their way down through turn number 5 and head up towards turn number 6. But as they come charge on through with Bernardo Colby there as well, you would have to imagine that Colby will have something to say about it. But meanwhile, white flag is out, and Daniel Holmer leads the field now onto the final lap of race 2. The Bright Esports driver here with all the under pressure as we ride on board and look back from the rear of his Elantra as they make the way out to 1 and up the hill for the final time in this race. You can see there Mikey Doble falling a little bit further back as the Elantra initially gets the run, but now as slipstream becomes an ever more pressing factor as they emerge from the S's, you can see how now the Honda is closing little by little, but Gardner as well sitting with an attempt for Doble, and this is where now Gardner really needs to think about, does he play his ace card in the run to the bus stop chicane? Can Doble get close enough to put the pressure on Homer? Well, Homer is not pressured through the bus stop chicane in terms of 2 wide, but he's got all the pressure to now every corner, every apex, all the way to the end of this lap. And as they come down through turn number 5, no mistake there, Homer nailing the apex, absolutely point perfect as they make the way out to 5, up towards 6 they go, and you can see that Doble now more focused on holding off what is the battle for P2 versus Gardner. As Gardner looks to go around the outside, they make the way into turn number 6. Gardner's there's a bit of contact, the two of them come together, the elbows come out as they make the way into 7. Gardner's back on the inside as they emerge on through. It'll be a drag race to line for them, but meanwhile it's going to be a win in race number 2 for Daniel Homer from Bright Esports ahead of Mikey Doble, who just pips Gavin Gardner to the line, and then it will be Martin Shirley who comes home P4 ahead of Will Redford, with Andrew Pike P6, Adam Delmont P7 there, and then it will be Jamie Dory who comes on through in P8 ahead of Nick Clemens, with Alan McCain bringing home his maiden win in the Pro-Am class, P10 overall. He's done it for iRacing Esports ahead of Paul Scott, P2 in class, P11 overall, and then Matthew Addy rounds off the Pro-Am podium with P12. Reese Watt, P13 overall ahead of Benjamin McCluskey, and then it will be Fernando Colbe in the end finishes P15 with what is Luke Jones P16, just behind him there Davide Favo P17, Philip Ruvo P18, Isaac Doble P19, Ian Manners completes the top 20, and then it will be Jonathan Collins who comes up through to take P21 ahead of Elwin Sykes, with Joseph Doble and Sam Smith P23, P24. Wayne Douglas will creep across the line P25 ahead of Lee Horn P26, and then it is Mark Sykes who just finishes ahead of Michael Lease. In fact, then Michael Lease gets ahead at the finish. I think Mark Sykes backing off there, perhaps return to the place from contact earlier on, but that is how they finish, with Trev Anderson in the end retiring 1 lap from the finish. So 28 out of 29 finishers on the lead lap, ladies and gents, but what a brilliant battle all the way through, and Daniel Homer in the end, the man who stands the top of the timing tower at the end of race number 2 in a superb drive. And Mikey Doble just holding Gavin Gardner at bay, and well, Alan McCain picking up his maiden class win, and I think he will be absolutely pleased that it's been a long time coming for the iRacing Esports driver, but he's found his way with Paul Scott there not too far behind. I think Paul Scott will definitely now be hoping that he's within the reverse grid group, because he'll be right up the front and be able to push the tempo to the ultimate conclusion, which could be for him picking up his maiden win in the series. But with that, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. Now, as we look to our results here, we are going to change things up a little bit by focusing on what is the overall grid rather than switching up to the classes, ladies and gentlemen, because of course all the grid comes together with regards to the positioning going into each and every subsequent race of the evening, but we will call out, of course, our podium finishers in the Pro-Am class. Daniel Homer then, your overall winner in race number 2 in round 6 for Bright Esports by a whole second almost over Mikey Doble, with the NDA Honda Racing driving then having to divert his attention to defending versus Gavin Gardner for P2, and doing so just enough versus the Verano Motorsport driver, the two separated by 10th as they cross the line. Martin Shirley in P4 for Simtech Racing ahead of Will Redford for NDA Honda Racing, and then Andrew Pike, Adam Delmont, Jamie Dory and Nick Clemens completing the run of pros in the top 9 before we get to our first Pro-Am finisher, P10 overall, Alan McCain for iRace Esports, and then best the rest in P11, Paul Scott, P2 in the Pro-Am class for NXTGEN Racing Blue, and Matthew Addy there rounds off the Pro-Am podium with P12 overall for NXTGEN Racing Yellow. Reese Watt in P13 in a good performance, recovering after a difficult race number 1 ahead of Benjamin McCluskey, also putting in a stellar performance, battling hard with Reese Watt, Bernardo Colbe and Luke Jones, and Bernardo Colbe there P15 ahead of Luke Jones, who really seemed to lose out at the end there in the battle between the four. Davide Favo P17 for CSA Racing ahead of Philip Bruberg, and a great little rivalry between the pair. And as we continue our way on down, Isaac Doble P19 ahead of Ian Manners P20, Jonathan Collins P21 for NXTGEN Racing Blue, and and then Elwin Sykes, Joseph Doble, Sam Smith and Wayne Douglas completing the top 25, with Lee Horn, Michael Lease and Mark Sykes in the run to 28th, and then last but not least there, with the unfortunate retirement, in fact retiring 12 laps before the finish. A very early retirement there. Our time tell was incorrect earlier on. Trevor Anderson, our sole retiree for JW Motorsport there, retiring after 2 laps with that major incident, of course, in the run through the bus stop chicane. But that's how they all finished in race number 2, ladies and gentlemen. And well, now it is time for us to start getting ready for race number 3, which we will return to for the build-up to approximately 10:05 this evening for what is 15 more laps of racing. But of course, before we do all that, there's just one thing we do need to settle the business of, and that is what is called the reverse grid draw. So as we cut to the commentary booth, of course, good evening to you all once again. We do have in front of us here the Lottery Bowl for the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship. Within this bowl are all the numbers from 6 through to 12 minus 9, because of course 9 was drawn last time out. I will shortly close my eyes, shuffle the balls, and then pull one out and see what number we get. And as we go for the draw, and our number for today is P10. It is going to be, as we just try to get ourselves orientated there, P10, and that will mean that maiden winner in the Pro-Am class of Alan McCain will be the sole Pro-Am to be involved in the reverse grid, because he is going to be taking pole position for iRace Esports in the final race of the day. Can McCain pull off a special and make it 2 wins on the bounce? Well, fortune would say he could do it, and what will his Pro-Am rivals have to say about that, given they're going to have to do it the hard way to get close to him? We'll find out all that and more, ladies and gentlemen, in approximately 5 minutes' time. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we return a couple of minutes early for the build-up to sprint race number 3, which is due to kick off in approximately 4 minutes' time. 15 more laps of racing here at the Watkins Glen International Circuit, and indeed for the final time today. And, well, it is definitely going to be the one to end all races here in the United States of America, because we have had 2 races on the bounce, which have been absolutely thrilling. They have been tactical, strategic, but also sprinting in nature to the finish, and now with one more race to go, all eyes are going to be on this one man, and his name is Alan McCain, the Pro-Am driver from iRacing Esports, who's just picked up his maiden Pro-Am class win. But now he's got something even bigger on his hands, which is a maiden reverse grid pole position overall, with the number 10 being drawn from the lottery bowl, and having finished P10 overall in race number 2, that is where he's going to see the grid flipped, and he'll be started at the very top of it. And the question will be, can he bring home an overall podium? Could he bring home an overall top 5? And can he bring home a Pro-Am win, make it 2 Pro-Am wins on the bounce? Or as he makes his way on down towards turn number 1, the one thing we would love to do, and we're going to try and do, is try and get his quick thoughts with regards to this whole situation, which might be a little bit new to him, given the fact this is going to be the first time he starts right from the top of the field. And as we do get a patch through to Alan McCain's car, and he does join us briefly from on board the car. Alan, just quick thoughts as you're getting ready to go. Reverse grid pole, plus your maiden win of the season only moments ago. This must be the night of your dreams.
That's a slight understatement to put it short.
Oh, goodness me. Well, great race in race number 2, and, well, looking to make it 2 on the bounce?
Hopefully, trying my best is all I can do.
I do have to ask, will you be looking to gun for, say, a top 5 overall, or even trying to take a podium off of the pros?
No, I don't think I would have the pace to take a podium from the pros. I'll just drive around and see where I come, and hopefully stay in the lead of the Pro-Ams.
That's fair play, Alan. Well, with that, we'll leave you to your preparations, but good luck in race number 3, and we'll see you at the finish line.
Thank you very much.
They're hearing very briefly from Alan McCain, of course, very focused on getting ready to go racing rather than being ready to be interviewed by us, and that's completely understandable. Of course, we just get that quick patch through, but at the same time as well, with everything in mind, you can imagine right now, although he said he's not going to go for a top 5 versus the pros overall, you never know, the temptation may creep in if that's the way the pace of the race goes. And as he comes on through, he's going to be looking to make it 2 on the bounce in the Pro-Am class. That's one thing for certain, as we heard it from him there and then. But as he makes his way along here, of course, we see other drivers who perhaps not had as much fortune today, but still enjoying the race. And we see CSA Racing's Elwin Sykes here, flying his way down around for turn 1 and into turns 2, 3 and 4 very shortly. And in fact, we do just try to get a very quick word with Elwin Sykes if we can, as he comes on through. And as we briefly get patched through to his CSA Racing Audi, Elwin, with about a minute to go, just quick thoughts on how you're feeling from race number 3? Sorry, say that again. Didn't quite catch that.
Can you hear me?
Yep, coming through.
Yes, no, just taking it easy. Sorry, you caught me there by surprise. Yeah, just taking it easy, chill from the back, let the guys fight it out and try to get through the field if I can.
Well, sounds like a good plan, Elvin. We'll leave you to it, but good luck in race number 3. It's great to see you enjoying the racing out there.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks.
So hearing that rapidly there from Elwin Sykes, our CSA racing driver, who we caught by surprise a little bit, and to be fair, we have done that a number of times as well, but the South African, as he makes his way into the pit lane here, of course, being joined by his teammates in what is the pit lane, and those teammates of his include, of course, what is Stefan Vessels, who I believe not on circuit today, but part of CSA Racing, and in the YouTube chat saying what is send it Elwin, and wishing him the best of luck and giving him some motivational speeches in the pits. No doubt about it. And good evening to you, Stefan, in the YouTube chat. Hope you're doing well, good sir. And we also see there Paul Scott in the YouTube chat saying, right, no more bump drafting, people. Time to attack. Paul Scott's going to be going all in on this one. Well, as they get ready to go, the checker flag is out in the practice session. Let's line up the grid for race number 3. So as they take to the grid, how will they line up, I hear you ask? Well, this is how they do. Alan McCain takes pole position, reverse grid pole for the final race of today. The Prime alone at the front of the field with the Pro alongside him of Nick Clibbins for iRacing Esports. The iRacing Esports pair will then be followed up by Jamie Dory and Adam Delmont, with Andrew Pike and Will Redford starting P5, P6. Now in round number 4, it's Martin Shirley and Gavin Gardner, with the Rana Motorsport driver there having to come through the field quite significantly this time, but Mikey Doble and Daniel Humm will have the tougher task, given the fact they have to find their way past the fast Audi. We then have on row number 6, Paul Scott and Matthew Addy, the two primes, will look to chase after Alan McCain as best they can, with Reese Watt and Benjamin McCluskey on the 7th row, Fernando Colbert and Luke Jones following up, with row number 9 contested by Davide Farver and Philip Bruberg, and then it will be Isaac Doble and Ian Manners on the 10th row, followed up by the pair of Collins and Sykes, Doble and Smith, and then our last couple of pairings will be Wayne Douglas and Lee Horn, Michael Lees and Mark Sykes, and that will complete the grid, ladies and gentlemen. But it's time for us to go racing, and here are the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights down, away we go for the final time today as Alan McCain looks to get the best possible start in the run to 1. Clibbins alongside him here, and Clibbins of course acting as pro leader but also rear gunner to an extent as they make their way down to the braking zone. But as they do, Clibbins under pressure immediately there from Jamie Dory, who tries to seize on his positional advantage in the run out of turn number 1. And as they come roaring up the hill now, everybody settles down into a rhythm as they charge on through. It looks as though most drivers here settling down nice and early. We've got one driver close to the wall there, that's McCluskey, but he seems to have calmed it down as well. As meanwhile, right towards the back, Joseph Doble here being elbowed out a little bit by Ian Manners as they come on up the hill. But as they make the way on through, we've got a car going round just ahead, and it is a little bit of trouble there for the JW Motorsport car that's come back together. It's taken Ian Manners, and also I believe Mark Sykes, that's Luke Jones, as we've got a flash of lights there. More cars going through, Manners still careening around, and it's all gone so very wrong for a whole number of drivers towards the back of the field. But as they come roaring on through here, we look to Alan McCain, who continues to lead, and we'll try to understand what exactly happened there very shortly. But it's gone wrong for Elwyn Sykes, for Jones, for what is Mark Sykes and many others. But right now it's not gone wrong for Alan McCain, who as he comes on through turns 6 and 7 will have led his first lap overall of NXTCC as he comes out the final corner. Meanwhile, further back as we continue to see the pros all charged on through. Have there been any big gains in the pro group? Well, it does look as though Gavin Gardner has not really made any gains so far, but can't complain too much either. Still P8 overall, but the thing is he has had Mikey Doble find his way on through rather quickly, in fact, as they make their way into lap number 2. Further behind we can see Wayne Douglas here falling off at the back of Sam Smith, as meanwhile Sam Smith just further in front as our cameraman quickly focuses their attention on Smith. He's trying to pick his way past Philip Bruberg here, as it really is the rise of the primes who've all picked their way on through the field as they make their way on up here, and it's going to be Bruberg battling with Smith. But of course Bruberg there in the Elantra will have the straight line speed advantage as Smith has to back out and go again. He can't get the overrun as they make the way up towards turn number 5 by the bus stop chicane. But as they come through, Matthew Addy meanwhile chasing after Reese Watt. In fact, Reese Watt having an absolutely stellar start as we've got a driver off there, and I believe that's Mikey Doble with a very rare mistake. You don't see those often, but Mikey Doble there having a brief moment as he makes his way back up to speed. He'll lose the place to Reese Watt, and right now the NDA Honda Racing driver not going forwards, in fact losing multiple places, and Gardner, Holmer and Watt all getting through as they make the way into turn number 6 for the second time of asking. Behind we can see Colby and McCluskey on the inside, they're battling for P14 overall, P5 in class, and McCluskey gets the move done. Colby cuts back, but he can't find it. We see Michael Lees there lap down, parking up on the exit of turn 6 on the outside in order to avoid getting in the way of any old drivers coming on through. But meanwhile, as we see, Matthew Addy still battling with Will Redford. Redford right now trying to find his way past the Veloster Prime driver, but the pro can't, given the straight line speed deficit and the weight in that Honda Civic tyre barn. As they make the way through turn number 1, they stay as they were as they head up the hill once again. Charging on through at this point, we look to Philip Bruberg, who continues to battle here with Wayne Douglas, and Wayne Douglas of course with that difficult end to his race number 2, having to do it the hard way coming up through the field. He's made his way to P16 as he gets ahead there of what is Philip Bruberg, but now he'll have the last piece of the straight which he's got to worry about as they charge on down. And now Bruberg here takes a peek round the outside as we see a flash of the lights there for Sam Smith, and also a flash of lights there. In fact, everybody flashing their lights. It does seem as though everyone trying to distract one another in the run to the bus stop chicane. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Adam Delmont has found his way past what is Jamie Dory and Nick Clibbins, but as they come out of turn number 5, it's 3 wide. Delmont on the outside there with enough of the run to stay high and dry, and as they make the way into turn number 6, he's in the middle of the road. No, he's not, in fact he's on the left of the picture as Dory in the centre of the road has the cover of Clibbins, who tries to go around the outside. As contact between Dory and Pike there backs out as they come on through, but gets it done in the end and squeezes his way with that contact with Jamie Doring. And now Andrew Pike is up into P4, P3 in the pro class as they all try to hunt down Alan McCain, your overall and your pro-am leader, as they head down towards turn number 1. As they head onto the brakes this time, you can see Clements battling with Andrew Pike into the opening right-hander, and as they come out 90 right here, Clements makes it go a little bit deep. He stays safe for now. Meanwhile, off in the rear of your picture, I believe that is Will Redford going quite deep, and that was Gavin Gardner going deep. We must clarify that. And as they make their way through, Gavin Gardner right now finds himself in a 5-way fight for what is P8 versus Redford, Doble, Reece Watt and also Matthew Addy. And Reece Watt and Matthew Addy both contested P2 in the Pro class at the back of this grouping as they chase after the pros, and they want to pick up overall positions as well. As they head into the bus stop chicane, they all settle down once again, rolling the way right into left, left into right as they come on through again. Well, this time it's Will Redford who gets it wrong, ahead of Mikey Doble coming through the bus stop chicane. NDA Honda Racing really struggling, it would seem, with the chicane in this close proximity racing at this time around. But then again, it is a bit darker, track temperature has dropped, and also low visibility may just be throwing a little bit of a conundrum into the works. As meanwhile, just in front there, the foreground of our camera, Martin Shirley up the inside to defend versus Daniel Holmer in the run for turn number 6, holding on to P6 overall as they make the way for the right hander at turn number 7 and come charging on down towards turn number 1 once again. But it is lying astern here in the long run, and whilst we do get a brief breather, we take a look back at what happened on the opening lap to a multitude of our drivers, including what was Elwyn Sykes. This was in the run, and when we look in front then, we have got a JW Motorsport car going very wrong, and Elwyn Sykes then having to take to the grass, but it all went wrong for Ian Manners, and I believe that was Luke Jones caught up in the carnage. And we take another look back at that very quickly from what was Luke Jones's perspective, and there was contact there, I think, with the Sim Racing Collective machine, unless I'm mistaken, and that's what set off the chain reaction. And in the end, well, Ian Manners and Luke Jones in cars that were just passengers with regards to that. You see Michael Lee's trying to take evasive action. In the end, the one car that tried to avoid it, all the 1-2-3 car of what Jonathan Collins, ends up coming into the mix regardless. But as we return to the live pictures there, a big shunt, but beyond that, that's the only incident we've had in this race so far of a considerable note. And as our drivers make the way on down the ramp at the moment here, coming towards the end of lap number 5 of 15, we can see how the battling continues between Martin Shirley and also Daniel Holmer, with Shirley really trying to dig his claws into this position, and Holmer being made to work it round the outside of 7. And Shirley defending this hard is going to start to create a chasm between himself and what is Jamie Doring in front, which I think Holmer will not want to see, because I think he wants a lot more than where he currently is, as Gavin Gardner looks to go down the inside here of Holmer into turn number 1, into 90 right. They go on the brakes, and Gardner's going to get the overrun on the braking, gets his nose ahead, and Holmer backs out. As we see running wide, it goes Shirley. But meanwhile, Daniel Holmer, who we ride on board here with, is looking to go faster. I think right now a bit of frustration may be building with the Scandinavian as he comes through turns 2 and 3 and up towards 4 in the run. But building his way out through the gearbox, of course, and shifting as late as possible. He wants every RPM he can going into 6th gear in the toe of that Audi. You can see the Audi just unfazed by the presence of the Elantra as they make the way into the bus stop chicane. Of course, all of them in the long slipstream line, and as they make the way on through the bus stop chicane, and now down into turn number 5, no change at the moment. They wait their turn and wait their runs as they make the way on through. But meanwhile, further back, Paul Scott going slowly here, coming out to turn number 5. I wonder if there's been a bit of an instart. I think in fact he's just gone overly deep, perhaps a little bit of an elbow from a driver a bit further up the road, but it's not gone right for Paul Scott, who's fallen a bit further back. Afterwards, a great performance in race number 2. But we're hearing that Davide Favo has been involved in an incident, and we'll try and find out what exactly happened to Davide Favo in short order. But right now we can see just behind Paul Scott is Joseph Doble, and I say just behind, in fact he's almost fully alongside, but Paul Scott gets the better run out of the final corner, just missing the wall there by a small margin as they make the way onto another lap here. And Paul Scott right now to dig in for P18 overall and P7 in class as they head down towards turn number 1 once again. But meanwhile, Sam Smith going for the inside move on Bernardo Colbert there for P15. He gets it as all the way at the front of the field. Meanwhile, going from prime to battling with pros in the deep portion of the field to the very front is the prime of Alan McCain. And well, it's been an absolute dream start to this race that he's led off the line, but now he has got the pressure of Adam Delmont, and he will be hoping that Delmont just decides to stay behind him for the time being, given the fact that Pike is a whole second behind, and therefore he'll not want Pike to get involved, because otherwise McCain McCain, well, he didn't say he was looking to get a podium overall in this race. He was just focusing on bringing home the Pro-Am win. But you can imagine now, given the fact we're at the halfway point of this race, when they come around to the start-finish line, he may be thinking that actually an overall podium could be on the cards here. And indeed, huge points for the iRacing Esports team come the end of today if they can notch an overall podium for McCain as he makes his way into turn number 1. Well, very shortly, the 212 driver now, I think, may have a change of tact, but as they come charging on down the round to go on to lap number 8, still plenty of time to go, and this run of drivers here absolutely stacked in line in terms of the pros, all waiting to pounce on one another, and they really are starting to play the long game here. And we talk about it a lot, but it is materialising. It's the same for Matthew Addy versus Reese Watt here with Benjamin McCluskey tucked in behind him. And I think for Addy and Watt, this is the first time today they have really battled one another on circuit. Of course, 2 of the 3 major championship contenders in the Pro-Am class, with Addy being the leader, Watt in P3 going into this round, and what is Joseph Doble a bit further down the road in P18 overall, whereas they're contesting P11 overall. And now the question is, does Addy decide to fight for this and turn it into the battle for P2? I think he has to, given McCain's dominance up front as they make their way into the bus stop chicane here, and Addy that time holds off the test of Reese Watt. But I think Reese Watt is just starting to put the feelers out there and seeing where Addy may be a little bit exposed under braking. But meanwhile, further back, Lee Horn trying to make moves on Philip Bruberg, trying to get up into P18 class. The Pro-Am's P19 overall, currently P20 is the next gen racing yellow driver as he makes his way down through the right-hander. And as he comes right on through and trying to even the score versus Philip Bruberg, of course, these two no strangers to battling one another from round to round, from race to race. And as they make the way out towards turn number 6, Lee Horn getting very flashy with lights as they head into the left-hander. Well, whilst we do have a brief moment, we're going to find out what exactly happened to Davide Farvo. Well, this was Davide Farvo moments ago on lap number 6. He came down through turn number 5, car there on the grass, and in the end, as he tried to unhook it off the grass, the car just let loose the other way and into the wall. Very unfortunate for the CSA Racing driver. But as we return to live pictures here, of course, he's running down a lap down in P25, but still he's keeping in it to win it, as they say. And we look all the way up to the front of the field here, and Alan McCain now having the test of Adam Delmont, trying to outspeed him in the Honda. Of course, the Elantra will have the top end as they make the way into turn number 5. But before it does, the chicane, and Delmont really forces the door open there. And look at how everyone's stacking up as by Jamie Jory almost snaps loose in the run through the bus stop chicane. And McCain then keeps Delmont at bay. And as they make the way on down, we ride on board the gearbox here of McCain as he breaks his way up towards turn number 6. Delmont so close, he almost takes our camera out there. They make the way into the corner into turn 6, and now McCain does not defend it into 6. He lets it go, and by going deep, he's going to let Pike through as well as they make the way through 6 into 7. And I think McCain now recognising, okay, the rivers are starting to flow, the pros are wanting to come on through. But you can see there behind him now, he's got teammate Nick Clemens, and I wouldn't be surprised if he looks there, sees Clemens is coming, and tries to let Clemens go as well. But then again, could he and Clemens be trying to work together here in order to go hunting after the winner and make it to iRacing Esports driver on the overall podium of 2 different classes as well, as they make the way on through? As we see that gamer dad in the YouTube chat saying Adam Delmont blast from the past. Well, right now he may be a blast from the past, but he's blasting his way into the present and trying to make his future in this championship certain in terms of being right up there in the championship fight in the pro class. As they come out to the S, you see Delmont there has to give the space to Pike. He goes defensive as Andrew Pike now gets ahead as they make the way through the bus stop chicane. And as they come on through, there's been a mistake for somebody, and who is that? Who's had to straight line is the question. We've returned, it's Gavin Gardner who's had to have an off track. I'm not exactly sure what's happened there. I think it might just be where they've come so close together between Gardner and Mikey Doble, and they've both had to let it go with Gardner straight lining on. But regardless of exactly what happened, they survived it, and now they make the way underway again. But the Britain here, I think, Verala Motorsport having a near miss as Will Redford looks up the inside into turn 6. He goes all in here, and in these cooler conditions, well, the Hondas are going to feel very comfortable in terms of their tyre degradation as they make the way through turn number 7 and on towards lap number 11. There's not long left here. The time continues to trickle down. Meanwhile, looking at another member of the Doble family for NDA Honda Racing, it's Joseph Doble who goes around the outside of Fernando Colbe. As Colbe there, given the 2 wide, turned into 3 wide, and it is Philip Bruberg there who's on the inside who makes the move. But Lee Horn now tries to get on the inside here, but Fernando Colbe tucked in behind. There's contact between Cole Ben Bruberg, and Bruberg is ping-ponged around, and it's gone wrong for Joseph Doble, but meanwhile, brother Isaac Doble gains the place off of him, and as a result, Isaac Doble gains 3 places for the space of 1 corner, and 3 drivers being caught up in a tricky situation, and Lee Horn as well making haste out of that one and not making hay as they make their way through the S's and now down towards the bus stop chicane. But can Isaac Doble now make it 1 more place gain? He's got all the momentum he needs. He goes around the outside, and Lee Horn here is going to have to think about whether he wants to make it too wide. Well, he goes for it, but Doble on the inside run there through the latter half, gets it hooked up and takes P6 in the class, P17 overall. Lee Horn tries to come back, but he can't find the inside into turn number 5. But as they come roaring on down, we look from them to a bit further up the order to Matthew Addy versus Reese Watt still. And these two, of course, battling for P2 in the prime class, P11 overall, and their battle does not seem to be igniting right now, but it will towards the very end. I think Reese Watt, they're just staying tucked in and trying to find a way to get the upper hand come the final couple of laps. They make the way down towards turn number 1, on towards the first corner for the 12th time of asking. Meanwhile, Mikey Doble now up the inside of Martin Shirley in the run to turn number 1, but it's going to be Veloster versus Civic Type R Power, and as they come up the hill, the Veloster may look behind at the moment, but I can assure you, once they get up towards top gear, there's a bit of contact between the two of them as well, and Doble close to the wall there, but avoids going into it, and that could have been tantamount to disaster. But Doble there being given the knock, as you can see, a bump draft in return from Will Redford, but immediately Shirley covers it off as they make their way into the braking zone. Shirley literally trying to make that a Veloster 2 cars wide, and with a little bit of weave under braking, as meanwhile McCain drifts his way across the exit of the bus stop chicane and releases when it's Nick Clibbins. Jamie Dory hooks it around the outside. McCain's got to be careful here, of course. He's got it all going his way. He could definitely have an overall top 5, as meanwhile Shirley keeps P6 and behind at bay as they make their way down towards turn number 6. They're looking all to try and pick their way around the Simtech Racing drivers. Contact to the rear of Shirley. He comes across the road, and with him, that is, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, that's Daniel Holmer sent to the tyre barrier. My goodness, now that is a moment that nobody wanted to see happen, but it's gone so very wrong. And Mikey Doble and Will Redford carry on here, but I wonder exactly how that happened and who was the one who may have just given the brief prod to the rear of Martin Shirley's car. We'll try and find out very shortly what exactly happened, but right now Martin Shirley is in the pits, and so is Daniel Holmer, both with damage that they need to repair, as meanwhile Doble and Redford and Gardner carry on. In fact, we get an opportunity to take a look back at what exactly happened very shortly, and in fact we do now, as they came into the braking zone. Well, camera's not ideal for the situation there, but it does look as though it was a tap on the rear of Shirley's car, but who was it, I believe, is the question. We can't quite tell exactly who it was. It was by the NDA Honda Racing drivers, and well, it was either Doble or Redford, but we're not 100% sure on who it is given the darkness on our cameras. But Shirley and Holmer, they're both being caught out as a result, as meanwhile coming down through turn number 5, this time around the live pictures, Doble and Redford, well, they've got P6, P7 overall. They want to go hunting after the rest of the Pro Class ahead of them, but I think it's a bit too far for them at this time of day, with only 2 more laps to go when the leader crosses the line next time around. Meanwhile, McCluskey here battling with Wayne Douglas. Douglas on the outside, and McCluskey defending versus the pro driver is the prime. And as the privateer makes his way on through for a debut as a guest, he's definitely been right in the thick of it in class and overall. And as they make the way through turn number 7, not long to go, as they make the way on across the line to lap number 14. Now Wayne Douglas looking up the inside here, getting the better run versus the Elantra. And I think it may be all said and done until the Buzzsaw chicane now, with Douglas getting ahead. He's going to have to try and stall McCluskey's pace coming out of 90 right, for the simple reason that Elantra is going to fly up the hill. Meanwhile, speaking of flying here, Andrew Pike from the Sim Racing Collective, we come back to our leaders overall, and as they make the way down the straightway here, you can see how the Englishman right now doing everything to hold on to the win. This would be his maiden win in the NXTCC if he brings it across the line at the end of lap number 15. And right now, as the Sim Racing Collective comes down through turn number 5, well, I think what he's got to try and do is force Delmont to fall backwards towards Clibbins and Jamie Dory, because Clibbins and Dory would love to push a little bit further on up here, given their respective place in the championship. They want to hunt down Pike as well, given that all 4 of these drivers are close together. The one that's really ahead of them, though, to be fair, is Adam Delmont in the championship. He's battling to be inside the top 3, whereas they're battling to be inside the top 5. And as they make the way into turn number 7, they'll make the way onto the final lap. One more tour of the Glen in season 2 of the NXTCC as they make the way across the timeline here, coming down towards turn number 1. It is Pike ahead of Delmont, followed by Clibbins and Dory. Which one of them will take the checker flag next time round? Meanwhile, Alan McCain in a quiet P5 overall. He's got Mikey Doble for company, who's 8 tenths off. But I think McCain's more focused on one thing, and that is making it back-to-back wins in the Pro-Am class, but we focus here on Andrew Pike as they make the way up through the S's, and you can see there Delmont trying to get his nose ahead. He's done that in the run through turn number 4. Now Delmont's ahead for now, but can the Sim Racing Collective Elantra strike back before the braking zone into the bus stop chicane? Flash of lights there from behind by Jamie Dory. They coming in, there's contact between the two of them. Pike there trying to force the door to stay open. Delmont holds the inside on the exit of the corner, and as they come down into the outer loop of the turn number 5, you can see how Clibbins now also on the inside. They're making contact. There's further contact with Pike, and as they make out, Clibbins is going to lose all the momentum. Flash of lights there. There's a brief tap from Jamie Dory as well, and as they make the way into turn number 6, it's Delmont on the inside, Pike on the outside. They come through the left-hander. Delmont is ahead, and I think he may have it done as they come into turn number 7. The Excite Racing driver comes on through, and as he does, I think he's done it, for as he comes on out of the final corner, he heads the line, and it will be Adam Delmont who takes the win in race number 3 for Excite Racing, ahead of Andrew Pike P2, Jamie Dory P3, Nick Clibbins P4, and then Alan McCain P5 overall brings home another win in the Pro-Am class to add to his maiden win in race 2. And then Mikey Doble and Will Redford, who comes across the line P7, Gavin Garner P8, Matthew Addy P9, P2 in the Pro-Am class, holding off Reese Watt, and then Sam Smith P10 ahead of Best of the Rest Wayne Douglas as he crosses the line there in P11. Reese Watt in P12 there, third in the Pro-Am class, ahead of Benjamin McCluskey, who brings home P13. Unlucky for some, but I think it's been a very fortunate day for the privateer. He's absolutely delivered on his debut. Paul Scott P14 ahead of Lee Horn. Lee Horn here in P15, and then it is Joseph Doble comes across the line P16 ahead of Isaac Doble, followed by Fernando Colbe P18, Philip Ruber P19, and then it will be Elwin Sykes who comes across the line in P20 when all is said and done, with Daniel Holmer P21 as he makes his way on through. And Daniel Holmer, the last of our finishers on the lead lap, with Ian Manners, Jonathan Collins, Davide Favo, and also Luke Jones finishing a lap down, Martin Shirley finishing 3 laps down, and we had the early retirements of Michael Lees and Mark Sykes. But as Adam Delmont makes his way into the pit lane, he will be grinning like the Cheshire Cat with regards to a fantastic way to end his day at Watkins Glen, and another fantastic set of performances from Adam Delmont. The Excite Racing driver really coming alive, and he is taking the fight to Will Redford for second in the Pro Championship. There's no question about it. Jamie Dory, meanwhile, also back up there once again. He had to go the long way around it after a difficult qualifying session, but he found his run of form, and as they all come into the pits now together, well, for Alan McCain, it has been a day to remember, and well, could he now really have announced himself on the stage to be taking on this man, Matthew Addy, for the top step of the Pro-Am standings when it's all done, with Reese Watt having a difficult day at the American circuit here today by comparison with the pair, but not too far off. But it's definitely going to mix up the standings as Holmer's the last of our drivers to make the way into the pits. Well, with that, let's take a look through the results for race number 3, and they are as follows, ladies and gentlemen. We can see that after 15 final laps of racing today, Adam Delmont bringing home the win by 4.5 tenths over Andrew Pike for Excite Racing, with the Sim Racing Collective driver of Pike there missing out on what was a very hard-fought and close run to the finish. I think Pike's maiden win will come eventually. It's just not today, but it's almost there, with Jamie Dory for NDA Honda Racing bringing home P3 in a return to the podium. It's been a little while since we've seen him on the podium, but a great drive from Dory. Nick Clibbins P4 there for iRacing Esports, ahead of his Pro-Am teammate Alan McCain, who takes the Pro-Am win in P5. Mikey Doble at P6 there, and then Will Redford, his teammate for NDA Honda Racing, just behind in P7. The two drivers having a difficult race 3 compared to other races, but to be fair, with the slipstream and those battles spread in the field, I think P6, P7 was the best they could get out of today, all things considered. Matthew Addy there, P8, second place in the Pro-Am class, and NXTGEN Racing at yellow. Another great result to add to his run of results at the American circuit, with Sam Smith P9 and then Wayne Douglas completing the top 10. And then Reese Watt, best of the rest there, 3rd place on the final step of the Prime podium, keeping his championship hopes alive for JW Motorsport. Benjamin McCluskey P12 ahead of Paul Scott, with Lee Horn at P14 and Joseph Doble at P15. Getting back ahead of his teammate Isaac Doble. In fact, sorry, no, his brother Isaac Doble, but of different teams there in the run to the very end, with Isaac Doble finishing 6 tenths behind for Next Gen Racing Yellow. And then Garton McColby races Bernardo Colbe, bringing home P17 and a difficult end to his day after 2 great races to start with, and Philip Bruberg in at P18. And as we continue down the results, we can see P19 Elwin Sykes ahead of Daniel Harmer, who completes the top 20 for Bright Esports. The last of our finishers on the lead lap, with then all the following drivers 1 lap down come the finish. Gavin Gardner, Ian Manners, Jonathan Collins, Davide Farver and Luke Jones all involved in respective instance. And then Martin Shelley, P26, retiring 3 laps down, with Michael Lees retiring early on in the race after 3 laps, P27, and Mark Sykes there in P28. And I believe that is all of our drivers accounted for there out of the 28 who started. In the end, it was effectively 26 who will be classified as finished, and then Lees and Sykes will be classified, I believe, as did not finish. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes all of our racing here today at the Watkins Glen International Circuit as darkness descends. But indeed, it's not over yet in terms of the show. We've got our post-round interviews coming up with our volunteer drivers. We'll be back in approximately 10 minutes of those. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And today we have got 3 drivers available for interview, 2 of our pros and 1 of our pro-ams. We'll be starting off with Mikey Doble, our pro championship leader going into tonight and continued championship leader, exiting from Watkins Glen for NDA Honda Racing. We'll then hear from Adam Delmont, the pro driver who really does seem to be on the run of form at the moment for Excite Racing and charging into P2 in the championship wherever he possibly can. And then we'll be hearing from maiden prime winner and back-to-back prime winner today of what is Alan McCain, also bringing home his maiden overall top 5. But as we get ready to go, we commence with Mikey Doble, and as he joins us in the interview room now, Mikey, going into tonight with a clear championship lead in your grasp, and really tonight was about trying to master your destiny in the championship, and with a win in race 1, a second in race 2, and a P6 in race number 3, it's been a solid night in a circuit that was always going to be difficult with the Honda's straight line speed disadvantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is one of the toughest nights I think we've had so far this season. It seems to get tougher and tougher every week in this Honda. It feels like we've got about 150 kilos on board, to be honest, compared to some of the cars. But no, I was really pleased to get the pole position and a win in race 1 and then a second in race 2 to further extend my race championship lead. And it was just trying to survive race 3. But yeah, on the whole, it was a good night.
Oh, indeed. And let's start off with that qualifying lap. And I have to be honest with you, the run of form expected today was that it was going to be an Audi or an Elantra on pole. But to see yourself on the top step, not just by a couple hundredths or a couple thousands, but by a tenth or 2, that was a huge achievement. You must have been beaming when you came into the pits knowing that you'd taken pole position by that margin at this circuit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sweet spot of the session to get a good time in was about halfway through, and then after that I was just chasing a lap time, and I think that other people would have struggled to put in the quick lap they needed to bridge the gap from them to myself. So I got it in at the right time. I was surprised to get pole, if I'm honest. I was kind of hoping for, maybe front 2 rows of the grid and see where we can go from there. But yeah, I mean, I do like this track. It does suit. The car is very good on the corners to make up some of that lost ground on the straights. But yeah, I think I delivered pretty much all I had in that qualifying session.
And then translating that into the race, in the run to turn number 1, we saw in both races 1 and 2, you get an absolutely brilliant start off the line in the Honda versus Wayne Douglas, who always seemed to join you there in the Veloster. Just take us through that run from turn 1 up towards the bus stop chicane the first time round, because it did look as though it was on a bit of a knife edge. The Veloster having a little bit more punch in the gearbox, but you in turn seem to have that mastery of just carrying the speed out of the opening corner.
Yeah, I mean, Wayne is very quick, and my plan after I lost the whole shot, as it was, going into turn 1 and out of turn 1, I had to settle for second, and then my best bet was to be tactical for the first 3 quarters of the race and try and sit in his slipstream, obviously with the lighter car, and try and make it a 2-car race. And we did manage to put in some good lap times and pull away from the majority of the field, and then it allowed us to have a really exciting battle for the lead for the last 2 laps, which we really enjoyed. We both chatted about it afterwards, saying it was probably one of the best finishing couple of laps of the season for us. Very clean, lots of side-by-side racing, and I had to take the opportunity when it was presented to me on the last lap.
Oh, indeed. And in the build-up to those last couple of laps, of course, we were talking about earlier in the broadcast how racing around here is synonymous with NASCAR visits in terms of the fact you've got long straights, significant amount of slipstream, and you really have to time your battles. So what was your target for when you knew, right, now's the time to go for the move?
Yeah, if anything, I was trying to hold back a little bit for the first 13 laps of the race to try and back the other cars away from the leader, because I knew that after the qualifying performance I probably had a little bit of pace in hand to close up to the back of Wayne when I had to. And then on 2 laps to go, I thought, all right, I can try and defend for 2 laps. Then I made the move on the second to last lap, but unfortunately he blasted back past me before we even got to the bus stop, so he had to then try and do the hard work again. And luckily a move into turn 1 kind of cemented that lead going up, and then this time before we got to the bus stop he wasn't quite far enough ahead on the left-hand side to pull round the outside of me, and I managed to outbrake him slightly and just throw everything at it and just throw it in and hope it stuck round the chicane. And I closed my eyes and come out the other side in the lead, and I built a little bit of a gap to Wayne, and then just don't make any mistakes for the last 2 corners.
Indeed, and taking the win in race number 1 and translating to race number 2, again a battle between yourself and Wayne Douglas off the line, but then you found that Daniel Holmer and Gavin Gardner wanted to get in the mix as Wayne Douglas fell by the wayside.
Yeah, this time it was a slightly different approach to the race. I got a better start, managed to hold the lead coming out of turn 1, and I noticed that positions 2 through to 5 were battling on the first lap, which allowed me to make a bit of a break from the pack. And I thought maybe if I could get over a second in front, I could maybe start to pull away and lose that slipstream. But slowly but surely they reeled me in a 10th here, a 10th there, to the point where it was impossible to pull away with the slipstream and extra weight. And yeah, it's unfortunate that Wayne made a mistake going for the move, and obviously ruined his chances of battling for the win. But then I had someone else to battle with in Daniel Holmer in that rapid Elantra. He passed me, and then I tried to have the same approach as I did in Wayne in race 1. And for the last 3 laps, I didn't have it. I didn't have enough pace to pull out and pass him, whilst also worrying about keeping second position from Gavin behind me in the Audi. So yeah, wasn't the ideal scenario, but still second was a good result considering where my closest championship rivals were racing at the time.
Oh, indeed, a result that really helps your overall campaign. And then going into race number 3, a top 10 reverse meant you started at P9 on the grid, but also much cooler conditions to go with it as we went deeper into the evening and slightly into night time. And it looked as though the circuit was a bit less grippy or more slippery for the opening laps, as we did see you make a couple incursions across the grass at the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, I mean, it's very different racing back in 10th or 11th versus racing at the front. Around a fast circuit like this, even with the limited aero these cars have, you do notice the lack of downforce on the cars when you're back running in that dirty air. And I think just 1 lap and also visual points as well are restricted in the dusk daylight, and with lots of cars in front of you, you can't sometimes gauge exactly where you should be braking. So I just mistimed the curb going into the chicane 1 lap, and it knocked me sideways and lost 3 or 4 positions from that, which is a shame. But yeah, I managed to regroup and start picking my way back through the field again best I could with the how hard it is to overtake round here in the Honda.
Indeed, in picking your way on through, of course, we did see you coming together with your teammate and also one of your close rivals in the championship of Will Redford, and also battling with Gavin Gardner. It did seem as though as the racing went deeper and deeper, things really did start to intensify, with Martin Shirley and also Daniel Holmer in the end being involved in the 5-way scrap.
Yeah, I mean, it got a little bit messy with Martin Shirley and Daniel Holmer at one point. I mean, I managed to make a move on Holmer down into the first corner clean and pick a position off, and Will was kind of trying to follow me through. And then the following lap I tried to make the same move on Shirley down into turn 1, and he managed to keep his nose alongside me going up through the S's. And yeah, I had a really scary moment through the left portion of the S's where I thought I'd gave him enough room. We were side by side, and I got a big whack in the door, forced me over to the wall, which lost me quite a lot of momentum down the straight, and meant we were under severe pressure from behind, which was a shame because then we lost the draft from the cars in front. And then it was very messy for the next half a lap. I was kind of stuck to the back bumper of Shirley, trying to not lose as much time, and then got a run coming out the carousel, tried to move to the left, and then got run to the white line again. And then we've got 3 or 4 cars all side by side behind us, so I've stayed on the back of Shirley going down into the left, and yeah, he's broken. I didn't brake early enough, clearly made a little bit of contact, and fortunately it tipped him into a spin which took out Daniel Holmer as well, which of course wasn't the intention. I'll leave that one for the stewards to have a look at. Whether he broke early, I mean, I don't know. We was right up his bumper. Obviously, it was very dark at the time. But yeah, I mean, it seemed a little bit overly aggressive for that portion of the race when we was in a good position to maybe catch back up to the leaders and, you know, drag each other back to the podium. But it seemed that we got embroiled in a fight ourselves, and yeah, it ended in tears for everyone, really.
Oh, indeed. A difficult moment really to wrap up what was building up to be quite the climax in race number 3. But still, after that, yourself and teammate Will Redford being able to finish P6, P7 and really trying to make the most out of the end of the race. Now, looking, of course, ahead to what is the final 2 rounds, we head next time out back to Germany for Motorsport Arena Oschersleben, and then we have Interlagos in the season finale. Given the fact that the points you take from today really will put you in a commanding position versus your peers, how's your outlook for the final 2 rounds? Are you feeling confident, or is it still take 1 round at a time to seal that championship?
Yeah, I'm not familiar at all with the German circuit that we're going to next, so I'll need to download that and do a few laps. I think from what I know, I think it's a bit more twisty and technical than the circuits we've been accustomed to in the mid part of the season, which will suit the Honda. Interlagos will be fantastic. It's one of my favourite international tracks to go racing at. Very wide, bit of variety in the corners. Won't be too much of a slipstream fest. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the last couple of rounds to seal off what's been a great championship campaign for myself and the team. I think the racing is going to be outstanding. The racing continues to get better throughout the season as the depth in the field is forever growing. So I think that it's definitely be worth tuning in for everyone.
Oh, 100%. And just with regards to the team, it is, I believe, mathematically possible for NDA Honda Racing to wrap up the team's championship as of the end of next round. You feeling as though yourself and the team can do it?
Yeah, I think so. I think if everyone keeps their wits about them and keeps doing what we're doing, it would take a miracle on second place's behalf for us to not win it. I think that, yeah, it'd be nice to have 3 of our drivers in the top 3 of the championship as well come the season end. So hoping that the whole team can finish on a high and Joseph can continue to challenge for the top spot in the Pro-Am as well.
Indeed, and well, with the championships coming down to the wire as time wears on with regards to the Pro-Am class and Joseph challenging hard there, I do have to ask, given the fact he's closely in a battle with Reese Watt but also trying to chase down Matthew Addy, it must be filling you with a bit of pride given the fact that I believe your brother is getting closer and closer to the top pace of the Pro-Am class from race to race and round after round.
Yeah, he's definitely getting quicker. Learning racecraft and how to pick your battles in this series is everything when you're trying to do well in a long format championship like this. I think definitely next season he'll be one to watch out, whether he's in Pro-Am or promoted to Pro. But yeah, for someone that's very new to iRacing, as is Isaac as well, I think they're both doing themselves. Yeah, they're putting some great races together as the season goes on. Just need more of them.
Oh, indeed. We'd always love to have more racing, but we have to go with the ones that are on the schedule. Well, with that, Mikey, just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yep, to you as always for a great broadcast, to Jamie and the rest of the team at NXTGEN for putting on the event. It takes a lot of admin work and man hours to get it to run as smoothly as it does. To my family that are watching from their couches, and to all my teammates for making it an enjoyable evening to go racing.
Well, Mikey, we have to, as always, say thank you to you for joining us in the interview room. Congratulations on the superb set of results once again. And with that championship looms closer for you, we look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time at Motorsport Arena Oschersleben.
Yeah, see you then. Thanks, Paul.
All the best. So here and there from Mikey Doble, our Pro Class Championship leader, as he emerges from today with a continued advantage for NDA Honda Racing. And they're reflecting what has been a positive evening of racing for not just himself but also the team as a whole. And with the team's championship surely within their grasp come the end of the penultimate round in a week's time, and Mikey himself now looking to be on course to potentially wrapping up the Pro Drivers' Championship in the penultimate round, albeit perhaps not mathematically, but putting it at a point where it would require an absolutely dramatic overturn of results in the season finale. The big question is, of course, how will he get on in the German arena next time out, given the fact that he's not quite experienced it compared to Interlagos, which does seem to be much more his preference in terms of the greater experience of the circuit. Well, it's going to be interesting to see, but also that remark there of the pride with regards to his brothers of both Joseph and Isaac as they're battling the way and moving faster and faster into the top echelons of the Pro-Am class. And you imagine with Joseph Doble in the hunt for that potential championship win in the Pro-Am class, and Isaac Doble looking to try and get into the top 5 come the season's conclusion, the Doble camp right now must be absolutely happy with the achievements of all of their family members racing in the series. But as we now come on to our second interviewee of today, we'll very shortly be hearing from Adam Delmont, our iRacing driver, the pro driver, who in the end brought home the overall win in the final race of the today with an absolutely superb drive from start to finish, but has also picked up some great results as well. And as we get ready to have him join us in the interview room, it's going to be interesting to hear his perspective on what has been a continued run of strong form in the championship season. In fact, as he does join me now, the iRacing driver is with us. Adam, the second half of the season really has been a second half to celebrate. Great success in Japan last time out, and today, when it started off with a P12, but then it became a P7 in race number 2, and then the overall win in a classic battle to the finish versus Andrew Pike and Jamie Dory, you must be pleased to be back on the top step to wrap up another day of racing.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's yeah, I've had a bit of a slow start on it really this season. So yeah, we're nice to get up there. Struggled weirdly in testing and practice. I were really quick. Came to qualifying and couldn't get a lap together. And then on the last lap, I was up on my optimum, and it would have been round about 17.3, 17.4, and I off-tracked through bus stop. So I just pulled it up. And yeah, such a hard track, mate. Qualifying was everything tonight with this circuit, to just be right towards the front, because it's so hard to pass when everybody's in a train.
Well, indeed, and qualifying being critical to the success of many, but you seem to find a way to subvert that in a way with regards to your performance in the races. And just take us through race number 1 first and foremost, given the fact it looked a bit difficult out there finding the space on the circuit and battling hard with other drivers, and really in the end not quite perhaps able to put together the race you wanted, having started P10 and finishing 2 places down.
Yeah, P1 was a hard slog. I mean, I think I had my bias a little bit off at first couple of laps, and a couple of mistakes, a couple of sideways moments dropped me off the lead pack, and I started trying to push a little bit too hard, trying to catch them back up, because they were all in a train just drafting. I'm on my own, and it allowed Jamie and a few others to catch me up. And to be fair, I had to apologise to Jamie after race 1, because he'd pushed me for a couple of laps, and I knew he was running a bit quicker than me, and he knew he was running a bit quicker, so he got a run on me, and he had Reese right behind him. So I lifted early and braked early to allow him to cut in front of me in the bus stop, and I just mistimed it. But I tried to turn in behind him to stop, to get in between him and Reese, and I clipped his rear left, sending him off. So I backed off to try and wait for him, not knowing where he'd gone, to let him go back through. So I lost a few positions there, and then it was a case of I started catching a couple of cars right towards the end of race 1, P11, 10 and 9 I think, and I think I crossed the line right on the back. I think it was Andrew Pike again, actually, his bumper, and that was, it was just a case of, I knew race 2, starting from P12, it was going to be a bit of a hard fight with the draft, but I managed to gain a few. So
Oh, indeed, and just with regards to, of course, the draft being so critical and the fact the Honda's carrying 75 kilograms of success ballast, and it's also not known for its straight line speed, particularly when it gets into 5th and 6th gear, it must be painful when you're not quite in the draft, because we know that draft zone on these touring cars, it's felt almost to 2 seconds, but you really always want to be within about 8/10 of a second or closer to be able to pick up that draft.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, if you sat at about 1.5 seconds, and the car in front has tow from another vehicle, you can't catch. They still pull on you, even though you're in tow. And yeah, we definitely felt the extra weight in the Hondas tonight. Going up the hill and down the street, you know, you get tucked up behind somebody, you get a run, pull out, and pull alongside just to see them start coming back at you. And edging in front of you towards the chicane. So yeah, it was just trying to be patient, trying to just read the cars in front, pick out where you're stronger or potentially weaker, and just study them for a few laps and get on the case and hope that they just run that little bit wide, just to give you enough to be able to get alongside and not have them coming back at you by the time you get to the chicane. But yeah, it was, a lot of thinking going on and just try to work things out while you're on move.
Indeed, it's a thinking man's game in racing at Watkins Glen, it would seem. And with regards to your race number 2, having started P12 and finished P7, taking the opportunities as they arose. But I have to ask, was there a particular goal in mind for race number 2, given the fact, of course, we had the reverse grid draw. P9 wasn't available due to Japan last time out. Were you looking to try and target finishing around P7, P6 to guarantee being in that draw?
No, not really, Paul. It's more a case of just trying and get as far up the pro driver order points, really. Obviously, I've been studying where Will has been tonight, and I was in front of him in race 1, and then obviously with my shenanigans and sliding, he did get past me and finished in front. Race 2, he finished 1 car in front of me, but then obviously he didn't finish in front of me race 3. But I was just trying to stay around Will and David Homer, those that are close that we're battling for. We're getting towards end of season. It's just about trying to claim as many points as you can at every race, really.
Oh, most definitely. And then speaking about claiming as many points as possible in every race, take us through race number 3, starting on the second row of the grid in P4. And, well, you didn't spend too much time waiting before you went charging after Pro-Am pole sitter, what was Alan McCain.
Yeah, good start. And, again, early doors, I was happy to just sit and follow the 3 in front and just work with them and just try and just get a bit of a rhythm going and just settle and work it up. But those two, a couple of little mistakes here and there, and it allowed me to just nip past, really. I think it's like doors open, I'm gonna go for it. And as I got to Alan, I actually said, because he moved to defend towards the chicane, and I actually did speak in game chat just to briefly say I'm not going to attack. We'd managed to get like a 1.5 second gap back to third. Plan was sit behind him, push him, hope that we can maintain a level of a gap that we won't be under fire from a number of cars. Which didn't really work. We stretched out a little while and we stayed there nice and steady for a little while, but inevitably the chasing cars did catch. So at that point I did say, well, look, every man now, we're all here. And yeah, I just, I got a run on him, past him, and then Andrew immediately got a run on me, so I lifted early and backed out early again to allow him to run through the bus stop with me behind. The last thing you want to do in that scenario is go side by side through there, because all the cars that are behind you are just going to pass you going up towards the final 2 corners. So, and then I was happy. I just sat behind him thinking, right, I'll monitor those behind, see how aggressive they're getting. If they're not getting massively aggressive, I'm just going to sit in Andrew's tyre marks. And literally just waited, mate, waiting game, waited. I knew last lap, go for it. And I got a really nice run, really close to him. So it gave me enough speed to be able to level peg him towards the chicane and braved it round outside to get the inside. And then the final 2 corners, I made him go to the right. Because I know with the final 2 corners, you can get a hell of a run going around the outside. So I wanted to give him the outside for the left, to give me the outside for the right, but I literally just heard the call, clear right, coming off the left, and I just literally just exited out and moved over to the curb to minimise how much speed I'd lose towards that final corner. So yeah, it worked out well. Hell of a race. I really enjoyed it with Alan and Andrew and Jamie and whatnot. It was a really good race, mate, and yeah, really happy to come out with a win.
Oh, most definitely, and you're not alone in that. We absolutely loved it from the commentary booth, and that gamer dad from the YouTube chat really enjoyed it, watching, in his own words, an old friend win race 3. Not been around for a few years, so it was nice to see Adam Delmont race again and take the win in the 3rd race of the day. And with that, of course, a key win in your championship campaign, and now with only 2 rounds to go, and the fact that you're in a freeway fight for 2nd place effectively with what is Will Redford and also Daniel Holmer. How are you feeling your chances are, given we head to Oschersleben in a week's time and then we wrap up at Interlagos?
It'll be what it'll be, mate. I'm actually surprised with how my season started to actually be fighting for P2. Mikey's gone. He's destroyed us. He's an absolute animal. He's gone. You know, I'll see what happens, mate. You know me. I'll still go for it, and if I can sniff a chance of passing any of those that I'm in contention with, you know, I'll be going for it. But also, don't want to try and push it to the point that I'm doing anything silly. You know, I don't want to be taking people out, and you know, I'm gonna do it cleanly, and yeah, it'll be what it'll be, mate. It'll be a hell of a battle for 2nd, though.
Oh, most definitely. And speaking of battle places, we of course head to Germany in a week's time for the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben circuit. How are you feeling for the circuit? Is it one you've driven previously?
Never driven in the TCR, to be fair, but I hadn't done tonight's circuit in TCR either. Plenty of laps around both in the MX-5, but yeah, I'll have to make sure I get some practice in, bud, and just learn how different this car is going to drive around there from what I'm, you know, used to predominantly. I'll be right, mate. I'll get my head down, and I'll be there or thereabouts. You know, if I qualify a couple of places down, I don't really worry about it too much, but because I know in race, my racecraft kind of, you know, I can 90% of the time work my way forward. You know, there's always those moments, but you know, I trust myself to be able to make up any qualifying deficiency, you know, in a race, providing that I don't get binned or, you know, don't get involved in a fight with a particular driver for too long, kind of thing.
Oh, 100%. That's understandable. And with that in mind, of course, just before we do let you go, Adam, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, yourself as always, mate, for a stellar broadcast. Jamie and all admin that run it, obviously my teammate Michael, and I've got to say again, I've already told him like repeatedly, but I do have to say sorry to Jamie for race 1 again. Yeah, totally on me, that one. And that's about it, bud. Yeah, just have a good one, and I'll be back next week.
Well, Adam, it has been a pleasure as always to have you in the interview. Congratulations on your results today, particularly the win in race number 3, and we look forward to seeing you out on circuit in a week's time.
Cheers, buddy.
All the best. So here and there from Adam Delmont, the Excite Racing number 77 Pro driver, piloting the Honda Civic Type R, and well, casual as he goes racing in terms of approaching it one race at a time, not setting major expectations and just looking to deliver, and he delivered indeed. It was a difficult qualifying session, but he turned it around, albeit losing out in race number 1, dropping 2 places, but then finding his way up the order in race number 2, the P7, and with the reverse grid playing into effect, he made it count with a very tense run versus Andrew Pike and company in the run to P1 right at the end of race number 3 in a filling conclusion to the racing at the Glen. And definitely right now, he may not be the driver out this, and he's definitely going to be taking P2 in the Pro Class Championship, but he's there on merit, and as he continues to build that run of form, he really is the driver with momentum behind him going into the final 2 rounds. But can he do it? Can he make the ultimate achievement of being the runner-up behind Mikey Doble? That'll be the question that we'll continue to answer when we head to Germany in a week's time. But now we must come to our final interviewees of this evening, and it will be none other than Alan McCain, the 212 Pro-Am driver, who will be hearing from, having had a night to remember with regards to his performances in class and overall. And as we get ready for him to join us in the interview room, it's going to be interesting to hear his thoughts, particularly on race number 3, after previously saying he wasn't targeting an overall top 5, but that's the way it came. And I wonder if at one point he thought the overall win might have also been on the cards as well. Well, as we get ready to hear from Alan McCain, give us a brief moment. He'll be with us very shortly. In fact, he can join us now. As we do just double check, he is available. And as he joins us now, Alan, a fantastic evening of racing, 2 wins on the bounce and also a 2nd place in the Pro-Am class in race number 1. Going into this round, you were a bit of an outsider in the hunt for the potential championship win in the Pro-Am class, but really today has cemented that you are a contender along the lines of Matthew Addy, Reese Watt and company to be up there come the conclusion of the championship. You must be absolutely pleased with the way things have gone at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, just over the moon. Things couldn't have went any better.
Oh, indeed. And with the way that things have gone, qualifying firstly, a good qualifying session for yourself. Most of the Pro-Ams, to be fair, qualifying together, not really being qualified 2 separately. But you found a way to put quite a strong lap together right at the end of the session.
It was one of them ones. It's just I tried a few different things, and it just ended up going back to basics, and the basics seemed to work the best for me.
In terms of going back to basics, take us through that. Did you start to move away from perhaps emphasising slipstream over natural 1-lap pace? We saw most drivers looking to try and pick up a toe of at least 1, if not 2 or 3 cars over the lap.
No, it was more so my approach to the corners. I was trying a few different approaches and things weren't working out, and I was running wide and I was overheating tyres. So I said to myself, just settle down, go back to the basics, and everything will come back to you.
Fair play, and a very sensible approach with that, and the laps did come to you in the end, taking pole position in the class by only 1,000th over Matthew Addy, the closest we have seen a pole position separated by over the course of NXTCC's history. I bet there was a bit of a grin on your face going onto the grid for race number 1 when you lined up alongside Addy and thought to yourself, you know, I'm 1,000th faster than you.
Yeah, it was one of them ones that was just so real to be true. But a big thanks, I think it was a teammate that actually helped me up there with the slipstream.
Oh, and with regards to your team, it's a great team dynamic in iRacing Esports, and all of you having strong performances tonight, which we'll come on to shortly. But just focusing on your race 1, P9 come the end of it, and it was a good way to start off your day, albeit not quite able to, in the end, pip Matthew Addy to the post, but you were right on his heels come the finish line. Yeah,
it was just one of them ones. The two, Matthew Addy and I think it was Andrew Pike was in front of that. They seemed to be a bit slower in certain parts of the track, and I just couldn't get the run on them to get past them. But I just said to myself, a few laps to go, I'll just settle for this. It's points that I wouldn't have got if I hadn't been here.
Oh, 100%. And settling for that meant you set yourself up quite nicely for race number 2. And in that one, you didn't hold back. You went for it.
I did indeed. The only time I held back was turn 1. I think it was a little precautious at turn 1. But after that, I just sort of kept the head down, fully focused, and just kept plugging away.
And I have to ask, with regards to the way you performed in race number 2, we saw early on that it was a three-way fight between yourself, Paul Scott and Matthew Addy, and also Reese Watt tried to creep into that mix but fell behind quite early. You were leading ahead of Addy and also Scott, and they started to battle one another quite aggressively. Was that the time when you thought to yourself, right, I've really got to push now because I need to get the gap on them?
Yeah, it was. It was one of them times that just, you see these things happening, you just have to take the good out of it.
And in doing so, coming across the line in the end, what was a margin of 3 seconds clear, almost 4 seconds clear in fact, and setting yourself up for what was race number 3. Now I have to ask, when we did announce, we caught you earlier of course, but now you've had a bit more time to breathe and settle. When we announced it was going to be P10 reverse grid pole, what was your reaction?
I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. I thought, this can't be my night at all. I can't have everything to fall into place in one night, but it happened to, and I was just so glad for it. And I'm quite happy that I done what I did in the last race. Just a pity I clipped the wall, or I probably would have had to fight for the podium.
Oh, most definitely. And with regards to your performance, we saw early on you made a very strong start in race number 3, and it looked as though for a long time, as we look back at your racing at the moment on the broadcast, that the pros were battling one another so aggressively for P2, particularly your teammate Nick Clewen's doing a fantastic job of really being the cork in the bottle for 5 laps on the bounce before Delmont found his way on through. Were you thinking that actually an overall win could secretly be on the cards?
Every lap that went past, I was saying to myself, yes, just keep it steady, it'll come, it will come, it will come. And then Delmont sent it. Well, he didn't send it, he made a move where he was better on the brakes than I was, and I just tried to follow him. And then a few laps later, Andrew Pike came through, and I clipped the barrier, which was a big mistake, dropped me way back, but then I managed to catch them again in the last lap.
Well, indeed. And as you caught up to them, was there a bit of a balancing act in your mind in terms of, obviously, you've got the pace to be on the overall podium, but in the end, you're battling for the overall top 5, but also you don't want to throw away what is practically a guaranteed second winning class of the day?
No, it was one of them ones to just see if I can catch them. If I caught them, when I caught them, I did. It was just a pity it wasn't a lap earlier. I might have tried something, but with it being so late in the race, I just thought to myself, just settle and finish where you're finishing. It's a win at the end of the day.
Indeed, a sensible approach to the racing. And of course, now with 2 rounds to go, focusing on your championship campaign, you've been a late charger in the Pro-Am Championship, but now you are a contender. We head to Motorsport Arena Oschersleben in a week's time, and then Interlagos in 2 weeks' time. How are you feeling for those circuits? Do you feel as though there's circuits that could favour you, or is it just one race at a time and see what happens?
To be truthful, the next week's circuit, I haven't done any laps on it yet at all on any car. But Interlagos, I like Interlagos pretty much.
That's a fair play. A lot of drivers talking about not really knowing the Oschersleben circuit, so it's going to be interesting to see where you and other drivers factor into that situation. But then coming on to your wider team's efforts at iRace Esports, you really have been the team this season, I would argue, have had perhaps the worst luck in the first half of the season, with your teammate Nick Clevens embodying a driver who's been very fast, but every time there's been an incident in the opening 4 rounds, it seems to have found him. With yourself, a lot of pace to begin with, but a couple of incidents knocking you astray, but then finding the pace really in the second half of the season and really growing into the championship. And we've seen that also with Sam Smith, a very fast driver, particularly in the latter portion of the races of the day. He really seems to come alive. How's the mood in the camp at the moment? Because it all seems to be coming together right towards the end.
Yeah, it's one of the best camps I've been in. The guys can't do enough. We do quite a few practice sessions throughout the week, and everybody helps everybody with a few things, and it's just a good place to be.
Well, it definitely sounds it. Whenever we see yourself out of the circuit, say in practice or qualifying, your teammates are not too far away. You all seem to be there together, in it to win it as a group. But as we now start to draw things to a close for this evening, Alan, I do have to ask before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or say thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
You guys for broadcasting and putting the league on, and all the drivers for the great racing tonight.
Well, Alan, with that, we also have to say thank you to you for the compliment, but also for joining us in the interview room. Congratulations on your maiden win in the series and 2 wins on the bounce today at the Glen. And we do look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time at Motorsport Arena Oschersleben.
Thank you very much.
All the best. So here and there from Alan McCain, our Pro-Am iRace esports driver in the 212 Elantra, who had a brilliant set of performances today. Not quite able to make it a triple to mirror what Matthew Addy was able to do last time out in Japan, but almost there. Could he be the 4th driver who makes it a triple in the Pro-Am class? Now that would be a statistic, that would be a shocker, but one that would certainly go to show you just how far the Pro-Am class is in terms of its proximity in pace. And we've still got 2 rounds to go, so you never know what could happen with the time we have remaining. But with that, we've heard from our 3 interviewees of the day, and they were, of course, the combination of who you've just heard from, of Alan McCain in the 212 Prime Machine for iRace Esports. And then our second interviewee was Adam Delmont, the pro in the 77 Honda Civic Type R for Excite Racing. And then our first interviewee was Mikey Doble, the pro NDA Honda racing driver in the 88 Civic Type R. And, well, we haven't got a fourth interview available this evening, ladies and gentlemen, but we may do it next time out. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you'd like to know more about Next Gen Racing in terms of the series we run or the wider community and everything else in between, then why not first check out our website, our official website being at www.nextgenracing.co.uk, and of course our website being the home of clean and fair sim racing for all, where we host our professionally organised sim racing events, championships and community, and you can find out all the latest information regarding our current leagues and events on the website, as well as all of our different socials that are available from Facebook through to the official Next Gen Racing Discord. But if you don't want to go to our website, well, you've always got other places you can go to, including, of course, the Next Gen Racing official Facebook group. That is at www.facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. And there, of course, we do put out all the information with regards to our upcoming broadcasts, our leagues, and everything in between. But with that, we now get ready to head our way over to Germany for the penultimate round of the season. Round number 7 of 8 will be on Tuesday the 17th of January in a week's time. And as we continue the charge into 2023, our drivers will take on the classic touring car racing class circuit of Motorsport Arena Oschersleben, who will come out on top of the circuit that's going to be tight, twisty, and all about knowing when to overtake and when to be able to put the pace down and break away from the pack. Well, we'll find out then. But until then, thank you very much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. We have been at Next Gen Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, stay well, stay smiling, stay positive, but most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.